subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Has its weaknesses. Gari's steel release couldn't cover his eyes, tongue, and other internal body tissues. This was his biggest weakness. Good. As expected of the son of the Hokage, Gari displayed the mental fortitude of a strong person at this moment. Even with one eye blinded, he still didn't show any signs of panic. However, no matter how calm he was, certain facts couldn't be changed. As the final roar abruptly ceased, Yamanaka and the others also determined their victory. The Yumino couple seemed to have suffered some injuries. Yamanaka appeared slightly disheveled. The only one unscathed was Ruri. After all, Ruri was the strongest among the four, and second only to Sarutobi Ryo in strength. In the original story, one of the reasons why Niji possessed such high talent was because he inherited the traits of his mother. In contrast, Hinata's ninja talent was quite lacking, and even Hanabi couldn't be considered a genius. With the defeat of his three comrades, Gari suddenly became alone. He wasn't stupid. Of course, he knew that facing so many people alone would not be advantageous. So, Gari, who was originally full of fighting spirit, didn't even think about it and turn around to run. The strong are like that, able to yield and stretch. Summoning technique. In the next second, with Sarutobi Ryo's low roar, a storm swept through the entire forest. A huge black shadow instantly appeared on the scene. Then, this giant black shadow pounced fiercely towards Gari. If Gari's charge was like a tank, then Katsuyu's charge at this time was like a cruise ship. But after all, seeing Katsuyu's appearance, his mind was slightly flustered. Because in his mind, it was Princess Tsunade who summoned Katsuyu. And Princess Tsunade's super strength might be able to directly shatter his steel release. The moment a gap appeared in his mind was the moment of weakness. Swift release. Sarutobi Ryo used swift release to quietly dart behind Gari. Gari, who was flying in the air, had nowhere to borrow strength, but Sarutobi Ryo stepped forward and used magnet release, magnetic field rotation. Then, a violent collapsing palm, wrapped in ice release, along with the power borrowed from the earth, slammed into the back of Gari's head. Bang! The loud noise and shockwave rippled out together. Although Gari's body mass had increased somewhat, it was still within a reasonable range. At most, it could be considered that he had gained tens of pounds or tens of kilograms. However, Sarutobi Ryo's overwhelming power directly knocked him down from the air and then slammed him heavily into the ground. Chi! Katsuyu spat out acid towards the large pit that Gari had crashed into. Biological acid that could instantly evaporate even steel became Gari's nemesis. Gari let out a furious roar mixed with screams and jumped out of the pit with bluish smoke all over his body. As a result, as soon as he poked his head out, he was slapped back by Sarutobi Ryo. Repeatedly, several times. This leader of a Wagakure's explosion department, a strong man with dual Kekkei Genkai, was thus beaten alive into the acid pit by Sarutobi Ryo, and his defense was forcibly broken. And as the lightning-release laser sword swept across, Gari, who was exposed to his flesh and blood, was instantly pierced through his body and died on the spot. Thump! Looking at the corpse falling from the air with a miserable death, Sarutobi Ryo raised his head for the first time and looked at Katsuka. Thank you. Oomph. Katsuyu made a cold hum like a girl, turned into a cloud of smoke, and dissipated on the spot. Chapter 47. New will of fire weapon Noura Rin not long after. The Wagakure's frontline camp. Jiraiya was deploying troops in the command tent. The Third Shinobi World War has begun, and this time he can't give up halfway like last time. So he took the initiative to take over the heavy responsibility here and became the commander of the Iwagakure front. Soon, the curtain was lifted and a subordinate walked in. Jiraiya-sama, everyone, there's good news. What news? Jiraiya put down the map and walked over. Minato Namikaze also pricked up his ears and began to listen. The NBU Squad 6, led by Sarutobi Ryo-sama, encountered an Iwagakure squad. Ryo-sama faced Bakuten no Gari face-to-face and finally killed him. What? Jiraiya was extremely shocked after hearing this, and was obviously very shocked by the news in front of him. He did think that Sarutobi Ryo was very strong, and he also considered the truth of him repelling Yakura. But he didn't expect that the other party could actually kill Bakuten no Gari one-on-one. Bakuten no Gari, about the same age as himself and Orochimaru, is a well-known veteran. He was very experienced and skilled, but he was actually killed. Minato Namikaze on the side had a solemn expression, his eyes flickering, not knowing what he was thinking. The corpse has already been brought back. Ryo-sama said that Bakuten no Gari has two Kekii Genkai, Steel Release and Explosion Release, which are very valuable for analysis. Analyzing corpses is one of the duties of the NBU. This was nothing in itself, but when Minato Namikaze heard that Gari had two Kekii Genkai, he couldn't help but look surprised. In the original future scene by the Great Toad Sage, Gari clearly only had the Explosion Release Kekii Genkai. This, following the changes in Yakura, the changes in other people also exceeded Minato Namikaze's expectations. This made him start to wonder, is the real culprit who caused the shinobi world to move in a different direction Ryo-sama? Or is there someone else? Minato Namikaze was completely unsure now. Tsukumo Hatake, Ryo, Sarutobi Yakura Gari. These famous figures have embarked on different futures. It is indeed very difficult to confirm who is the culprit that changed the established future from among them. The discussion about Sarutobi Ryo started, and most of their tones were admiration. Kakashi listened to it and said unconvinced, Minato-sensei can also easily kill that guy. Minato Namikaze was silent on the spot about Kakashi's statement, because if the other party really had the Steel Release Kekii Genkai, he would not be able to break the defense. Even if he used the newly practiced new technique, Rasengan, he may not be able to break through the defense of Steel Release. Damage means are still too lacking. Minato Namikaze began to feel anxious. At the same time, he was very curious about how Ryo-sama killed Gari. In fact, it is difficult for Minato Namikaze to achieve results when facing Gari, Raikage, such high-defense ninjas. This is also his current shortcoming. Minato, you have to work hard too. Jiraiya turned around, left the crowd, walked over and patted his disciple on the shoulder. The Third Shinobi World War broke out, and Minato Namikaze performed many missions in the early stage, and each time he killed them perfectly. 95. Section 95, however, those he killed were mostly small fry. Compared to Sarutobi Ryo, he needed to face some recognizable figures to prove himself. Minato Namikaze thought for a moment, then looked up at his teacher. Jiraiya-sensei, I want to go and see the Cloud Village frontline. The Cloud Village frontline? No problem. As long as you, Minato, are willing. Jiraiya nodded, clearly trusting his disciple. Although Fugaku Uchiha was at the Cloud Village front, the pressure was still great. After all, the A and B brothers, the Storm Release Kekii Genkai ninjas, and various other Kekii Genkai ninjas were not to be underestimated. If Minato was confident he could achieve merit there, that would be excellent. Soon, Minato Namikaze gathered his 3 disciples. Kakashi, you guys should return to the village first. This trip to Cloud Village would involve encountering the A and B brothers. That was not a battle Kakashi and the others could participate in. 2 days later, Sarutobi Ryo returned to Konoha. At the same time, news of victory arrived from the front line. Due to the death of Gari of the Explosion Release, Iwagakure adjusted its strategy and began to cautiously probe. As a result, the spies they sent out again were killed by Tsukumo Hatake. Taking advantage of the enemy's blindness and failure to obtain their movements, Tsukumo Hatake boldly led a unit into enemy territory. A chaotic slaughter broke the Iwagakure front line, forcing them to retreat dozens of kilometers. The name of Konoha's White Fang once again resounded throughout the surrounding countries. Sarutobi Ryo wanted to find Yakushi Nono. However, due to the outbreak of war, there were many more fleeing refugees and displaced orphans. Nono was exceptionally busy for a time. Therefore, Sarutobi Ryo temporarily dismissed the idea of finding her, and instead turned his attention to another person. Noera Rin. After graduation, she followed Minato Namikaze on missions. And after experiencing the battlefield, Noera Rin had gained even more growth than Obito Uchiha. When encountering enemies, she would at least not tremble with fear, but be able to act correctly. The streets at dusk. Noera Rin, having finished washing up, cleaned off the grime of battle. Having just returned from the battlefield, she received an invitation from Sarutobi Ryo to meet at a tea house. After not seeing each other for many days, Noera Rin's temperament had undergone some changes. Rin, you've become more mature. Sarutobi Ryo revealed a slight smile. Is that so? Noera Rin was happy in her heart. Soon she realized the double meaning of the words. Mature. Is Ryo-sama saying that I've become more womanly? Thinking of this, Noera Rin quickly dispelled the thought in her heart. She told herself that she should think more about Kakashi. However, when she gazed at Sarutobi Ryo's handsome face, she couldn't help but think of the industries he owned, and also his previous achievement of single-handedly killing Gari. Young, handsome, of noble birth, rich and powerful. So many advantages in one person, almost enough to satisfy all a girl's fantasies. Noera Rin's cheeks couldn't help but turn slightly red, her mind in a mess. Rin, let's go inside and talk. Sarutobi Ryo invited Noera Rin into a private room in the tea house. Sarutobi Ryo could see the girl's infatuation clearly. After not seeing each other for a while, this emotion and the secretion of hormones were still there. The so-called strike while the iron is hot take advantage of this opportunity to increase her favorability. Just as Sarutobi Ryo was thinking this, a new prompt popped up in front of him. Will of Fire System. New Will of Fire Weapon. Noera Rin. Side Quest Objective. Instill the Will of Fire in Noera Rin. Side Quest Reward. Steel Release Progress 20%. Side Quest Reward. Explosion Release Progress 90%. Sarutobi Ryo. Eek. Chapter 48. Powe Noera Rin. Favorability increases rapidly after drinking tea. Sarutobi Ryo got up to pay the bill and took Noera Rin to his residence. The continuously renovated old house, after the expansion some time ago, had been completely transformed into a new manor. Noera Rin stepped inside, looking at the vast but somewhat quiet manor, and couldn't help but feel curious. Compared to the last time she came, it had completely changed. Although the manor was large, most of the rooms were spare rooms. Although empty, each room would have a related use in the future. Soon, the two entered a secret room and went underground along the open staircase. With a faint candlelight burned, Noera Rin saw the remains placed on the platform. This is the remains of Gari of the explosion release, Sarutobi Ryo said, pointing to the remains covered with cloth. Be careful, Rin, it looks quite scary. Because of the corrosion by the slug's strong acid, the surface of the remains was not ordinary. Noera Rin nodded, and although she had been mentally prepared, she was still startled by the terrifying and ferocious face the moment she uncovered it. This was different from a normal anatomy, because corpses that died accidentally or were injured would have very frightening faces. Ah! Noera Rin exclaimed and stepped back. Then she bumped into Sarutobi Ryo's arms. Rin, are you all right? Sarutobi Ryo immediately supported her and asked. Suddenly entering a warm embrace couldn't help but remind Noera Rin of the past, when Ryo-sama sent her home and put a coat on her. The physical contact made her face flush. And no, I'm all right, Ryo-sama. Noera Rin lowered her head and shook her head. The little deer in her heart was running wild, and she began to overthink even more. Rin, you like Kakashi? Noera Rin said to herself, repeatedly emphasizing this matter in her heart. However, the trembling of her body and the blush on her cheeks betrayed her true thoughts. During adolescence, hormone secretion is intense and biological nature will take over. As a medical ninja, Noera Rin understood this principle, but she couldn't control herself. Sarutobi Ryo slowly released her. Noera Rin also quickly began to examine Gari's remains. Rin, how have you been lately? Sarutobi Ryo stood aside and began to express his concern. Noera Rin immediately responded, talking about her experiences after becoming a ninja. Back and forth, the two chatted happily. Then, I won't disturb you any further. If you need anything, just come and find me. After speaking, Sarutobi Ryo nodded and turned to leave the scene. Before stepping onto the stairs, it was clearly displayed in his retina that Noera Rin's progress had reached 20%. Sarutobi Ryo, she really is a pure girl. Time flies. Days passed by, and Noera Rin came to help every day. Her medical ninjutsu had become even more rapid after graduation. After all, she had officially joined the medical team and caught up with the Third Ninja World War, with many practical battles to improve. After this period of accumulation, her medical ninjutsu skills were approaching Nono's. Sarutobi Ryo believed that as long as there was enough time, Noera Rin could catch up to Tsunade. At that time, she would be his most powerful medical assistant. Therefore, the matter of instilling the will of fire in her also needed special attention. One morning, Noera Rin, who had been busy all night, had analyzed some information from a corpse. Ryo-sama, with my current level, I only obtained information about steel release. Noera Rin stood at the entrance, looking apologetic. Sarutobi Ryo was not surprised by this. After all, the system had already prompted related content. Rin, you're just starting out, don't worry. He patted her on the shoulder. Sarutobi Ryo was kind and gentle. It's already good to get information about steel release. Seeing that Ryo-sama was so understanding, Noera Rin couldn't help but smile. She nodded, indicating that she would continue to work hard, and one day, she would crack the mystery of explosion release. I have already preserved the remains with sealing techniques, Rin. I will still need to trouble you to continue analyzing this body at that time. Sarutobi Ryo indicated that Rin would still need to continue analyzing this body in the future. 96. Section 96, seeing Lord Ryo's affirmation and trust in her, Rin immediately appeared very excited. By the way, Rin, you're about to take the Chunin exams, right? Sarutobi Ryo mentioned Noera Rin's upcoming assessment task. She and Uchiha Obito will participate in the Chunin exams together. In the end, Noera Rin will succeed, while Obito will fail. It won't be until Obito retakes the exam the next time that he passes. If you succeed at that time, how about considering joining the Umbu? Of course, it's just a formality. Sarutobi Ryo waved his hand grandly. He has the authority to make this request. As his reputation and strength increase, the power he can exercise also increases. At that time, he will have Noera Rin join his Umbu Squad 6 and become one of his people. Okay, Noera Rin agreed without the slightest hesitation. A formality, of course, there's no problem with that. Watching the back of the cheerful girl leaving, Sarutobi Ryo's expression slowly returned to calmness. Noera Rin, progress. 25%, Lord Ryo. Yamanaka Megumi stepped out of the shadows. Seeing Noera Rin leaving, she began to report the latest intelligence she had obtained. The Yellow Flash is rising to fame. He fought against the AB brothers on the battlefield against Kumogakure. He fought 1 against 2, forcing them both to retreat. Everyone in the village is talking about this. Namikaze Minato became famous in one battle, and the entire Konoha is filled with his legend. Seeing Yamanaka Megumi's tightly furrowed brows, Sarutobi Ryo unhurriedly unfolded the information obtained from Noera Rin's analysis. Lord Ryo, Yamanaka Megumi was a little strange. Namikaze Minato made a big splash, and his reputation has increased so much at once. Why aren't you worried? It's nothing, let him be. Sarutobi Ryo shook his head, not caring about Namikaze Minato's achievements at all. The AB brothers, that is Killer Bee and A, are now fighting Namikaze Minato for the first time. Killer Bee is only 15 years old this year. Namikaze Minato is already in his early 20s. The official data book clearly stated, during the Third Shinobi World War, Namake's Minato fought Killer Bee many times, and neither could defeat the other. In the end, they recognized each other's strength. That is to say, no matter how good Namake's Minato is, he can only go 50-50 with the 15-year-old Killer Bee, and he can't kill Killer Bee, nor can he kill A. What's there to worry about? In comparison, I am taking one step at a time. This scroll itself is also very valuable. Although it is impossible for me to learn Steel Release like Gari, this scroll can be kept for others to refer to. If he recruits useful subordinates in the future, he can let his subordinates learn Steel Release and become useful meat shields. Lord Ryo. Just then, there was another burst of noise at the entrance outside. Sarutobi Ryo looked over and found the Yumino couple. Behind them was a bloody figure on their backs. Sarutobi Ryo recognized Girin's hair color at a glance. What's going on? The two immediately carried Girin in, and soon, Nono was also invited over to start treating Girin. The injuries are too severe. Nono frowned. Traces of hasty bandaging can be seen. And the most important thing is that these wounds have been left untreated for several days. She couldn't imagine how this child could have survived to get here. Sarutobi Ryo looked at the seriously injured Girin, his eyes flickering uncertainly. Looking at the injuries, there are blast wounds and sharp weapon cut wounds. Judging from the technique, it seems to be the work of a Sunagakure puppeteer. But if that's the case, the weapon should be coated with poison. But there is no sign of conventional poisoning in Girin's wounds. The wound seems difficult to heal. After treating for a moment, Nono began to frown. There's a strange chakra eroding her wound. Strange chakra? Yamanaka Megumi leaned over, placed her hand on Girin's body, and began to sense. Soon, she confirmed Nono's statement. For safety's sake, Yamanaka Megumi put her right hand on Girin's forehead again. In her coma, Girin seemed to have seen some terrible sight. Yamanaka Megumi immersed herself and carefully entered Girin's mind. A moment later, the blonde ponytail girl opened her eyes and set a location. Lulan. Lulan? Sarutobi Ryo glanced at Girin, the faint purple light at the wound faintly visible. Lulan is a city-state on the border of the Land of Wind, located in the gap between the Land of Rivers and the Land of Wind. The country is not large, with only one city. It's the Dragon Vein Power. In Sarutobi Ryo's mind, a man named Anro-Kuzen immediately appeared. He was also the boss in the movie who returned to the past from the future. He can be considered a person from the future. In order to escape the ninja world's wanted, he was finally forced into the Lulan ruins by the Konoha team. Anro-Kuzen activated the technique, swallowing the seal set by Namake's Minato together, and then possessed the power of the Lulan underground, the power of the Dragon Vein. Dragon Vein is that the country. The knowledgeable Nono immediately understood. She immediately told Sarutobi Ryo the location of Lulan. Sarutobi Ryo thought for a while, and without any hesitation, prepared to go to Lulan. Lord! Just then, Girin woke up. She was panting rapidly, and the figure of Sarutobi Ryo was reflected in her eyes. Be careful. After saying this, she immediately fainted again. The unfinished business made Sarutobi Ryo suspicious. Yamanaka Megumi shook her head, indicating that if she wanted to further explore the memory, it would take a long time, especially without hurting Girin's brain. Then wait a little longer. Seeing that Girin still had something to say, Sarutobi Ryo prepared to wait a while before setting off. That night, Nono continuously treated Girin, and Girin finally escaped danger. Her condition has stabilized, and she can speak normally. As Girin recounted, Sarutobi Ryo gradually learned what had happened to Girin. It turned out that since Yakura's attack, she had been traveling around the ninja world, as Sarutobi Ryo said, honing her skills. During this period, she also got on the line with Ringo Amiri and worked together as bounty hunters. Originally, the experience was a very happy thing. But later, she accidentally accepted a commission from Lulan in the underground black market. She thought it was just an ordinary bounty mission, that is, helping to carry a large amount of supplies or something. During the war, this kind of smuggling was very profitable. Girin immediately thought that she could use her full-time job professional counterpart to complete this task and talk about business, by the way. So she took the initiative to go to Lulon, preparing to talk to the Lulon Queen there. But unintentionally, she stumbled upon a conspiracy that occurred in Lulon. All the residents of Lulon have been replaced by puppets. The real queen is dead. The queen's daughter, that is, the current queen, Sarah, is still kept in the dark. Everything pointed to the man named Anro-Kuzan. As soon as he saw me, he wanted to kill me. Gyurin frowned, deeply puzzled by this. Lying on the bed, she looked at her lord, and Sarutobi Ryo also shook his head, not knowing why. However, Sarutobi Ryo guessed a possibility. Anro-Kuzan came from the future. 97. Section 97. So, this foreshadows that the future self and him had a conflict. He also knows that Gyurin is his subordinate, so he wants to change the past and kill Gyurin along the way. Probably, that's how it is. While escaping, I awakened a special Kekkei Genkai, new will of fire weapon. Gyurin, side mission objective. Inject the will of fire into Gyurin, side mission reward. Crystal release. Such a clear mission prompt indicates that the method to obtain it will be very simple. At this time, it was already late at night. No, exhausted from a day's work, had already returned. The candlelight in the room flickered, unusually quiet. Sarutobi Ryo guarded the bedside, Gyurin lying on the bed. This feeling of being protected made her cheeks slightly red, not knowing what she was thinking. Is it the feeling of family? Or is it the emotions that have been hidden in her heart all along? Sarutobi Ryo stared at the weak girl on the bed. Wrapped in bandages, her body in the initial stages of development, looking quite presentable. It is foreseeable that she will grow into a stunning beauty in the future. Under Sarutobi Ryo's scrutiny, Gyurin's eyes trembled, slowly looking away. Soon, the candle was extinguished by Sarutobi Ryo with a wave of his hand. This sudden change caused Gyurin's heart to beat wildly, only to hear, in the darkness, a hot breath sounded in her ear. Gyurin, your injuries will need to be healed properly next. Rustling sound arose. The unique medical ninja tool of the Sarutobi clan swelled in the darkness. Gyurin's breathing became more and more rapid. Because of her injuries, she couldn't even move a finger. But at this moment, she was both anticipating and afraid of something happening. The next moment, the Sarutobi clan's medical ninja tool was applied directly to her body. Sizzle. Gyurin ugh. She only felt a weight on her eyes, as if Mount Tai was pressing down on her. The unprecedented medical experience, pain, and comfort instantly made Gyurin scream and faint. Chapter 50. The 6th Kekkei Genkai. Crystal Release. The next morning, the sky was not yet bright. Pop. Sarutobi Ryo backed away. After a night of treatment, Gyurin's injuries were almost completely healed. Sarutobi Ryo also obtained the fusion method of crystal release from her. A verbal description. While receiving treatment, Gyurin, who was intermittently speaking about crystal release, was now soundly asleep. Progress, 90%. Reward, crystal release fusion method. After taking a look at the prompt in front of him, Sarutobi Ryo was very satisfied. Gyurin was still young, and it was easy to win her heart with a little manipulation. Then next, it's time to go to the Hokage building. Having understood what happened in Rurin, Sarutobi Ryo prepared to solve this trouble along the way. When the first ray of sunshine appeared in the morning, Konoha entrance. Early in the morning, Namake's Minato, who had returned to the village, received a warm welcome from the people. Under the promotion of Kohoro Yuditane, Hamura Mitokado, and other high-level officials, Namake's Minato was portrayed as a powerhouse no less than the Sannin. Alone, facing the AB brothers, he forced them back. This kind of achievement would be a high-difficulty task for the Sannin. However, Namake's Minato completed this feat at a young age. For a time, Namake's Minato was in the limelight. Huff, slightly relieved, watching history slowly move towards its normal trajectory, Namake's Minato felt a little calmer at his heart. When he went to the Hokage building to report, the high-level officials praised him without reservation. Even the third Hokage, Sarutobi Ryo, was surprised by his performance. Affirming Namikaze Minato's achievements and strength, Sarutobi Ryo mentioned another important task. Minato, according to the results of the 6th squad of the Umbu accidentally encountering, we have confirmed that Rurin is currently in crisis. Baesi Jioling San Ki Jioba Sarutobi Ryo mentioned Rurin, and Namikaze Minato's eyes lit up immediately. It was almost at this time that the Rurin plot should have arrived. With the acquisition of Mikoto Mountain's memory, relying on the comparison of memories, he could predict in advance. During this period, Namikaze Minato became more and more familiar with using the memory of the predetermined future as a reference for his actions. In the original future, Rurin was invaded by the Future Man and Liu Shan and replaced. A Rurin citizen went through hardships and finally came to Konoha and spoke of the last request of the Queen of Rurin back then, sending a request for help to Konoha, requesting them to come and quell the coup d'etat encountered by Rurin. It should have been like this. The people of the 6th squad of the Umbu accidentally discovered the secret of Rurin and were almost silenced. Sarutobi Ryo was talking about the matter that Sarutobi Ryo had mentioned early this morning, although Rurin did not send a rescue request. But Konoha should also extend a helping hand, because in those past years, Konoha had always been on good terms with Rurin and had also received many commissions from the Queen of Rurin. Now, after several years of separation, Rurin has not had any special news. Sarutobi Ryo was indeed a little worried. I have already sent more people to inquire about information. After confirming the situation, we can almost go to support. Sarutobi Ryo's words clearly meant that he wanted to plan before acting, thoroughly confirm the pattern of the Rurin coup. After all, it was impossible for Gurin, a little girl, to describe the whole picture of Rurin. Namikaze Minato quietly listened to the 3rd Hokage's report, thinking that this was another change different from memory. Hokage-sama, I will be ready at any time. Namikaze Minato nodded. It concerned Rurin, or rather, the power of the Dragon Vein. This kind of dangerous space-time power was indeed more suitable for him to handle. A few days passed in a flash. Sarutobi Ryo sat cross-legged quietly in the training room. At a certain moment, all the shadow clones around him disappeared together, and Sarutobi Ryo formed a hand seal, crystal release. With Sarutobi Ryo's technique, a layer of black substance visible to the naked eye began to appear in front of him. These black substances glowed with a crystal-clear luster, looking like gems, or rather, black crystals. The growing black crystals like lush weeds began to grow wildly. In a short while, it turned into a messy and disordered potted plant-like state. After sensing it slightly, Sarutobi Ryo found that he could sense the existence of these crystals. Crystal release is creating something out of nothing. So it is closely related to EYES release. Because crystals are products belonging to the underground, it is also related to earth release. Therefore, the fusion method of crystal release is earth release combined with EYES release. Sarutobi Ryo immediately got up and began to check the characteristics of these crystals. Because it is a substance generated by chakra, it will not be completely the same as real crystals in reality. The texture is smooth and cool to the touch. Sarutobi Ryo tried to strike it and found that these substances were extremely hard. After breaking off a piece, Sarutobi Ryo held it in his hand and found that it also had sharp characteristics. Except that the color looks different from Gurin's pink crystal release, the other characteristics are actually almost the same. Crystal release is a Kekkei Genkai that can be played with many functions. Attack, defense, barrier, auxiliary, illusion, everything. It is an all-purpose Kekkei Genkai. Depending on the caster's chakra control and brain power, it will exert completely different functions. Crystal release, crystal wall. 98. Section 98. Having mastered the crystal release, Ryo began a new round of practice. Crack, crack, crack. The crystal release chakra was converted into black crystals, rising up like a wall. This move was modeled after the earth release, earth flow wall, a B-rank technique. However, Because Crystal Release mixed in Een Release, its defensive power and functionality became even stronger. It could be said to be the ultimate enhanced version of Earth Flow Wall. Subsequently, in the empty underground hall, Hiruzen Ryo also performed the hand seals for an offensive technique. Crystal Release, Crystal Dragon Devastation. Crack, crack, crack. Countless crystals spread and grew wildly. Then a ferocious crystal dragon roared and crossed the air, slamming heavily into the massive wall. Rumble. The ground shook in the underground, and its attack power was many times greater than Water Dragon Bullet. Amazing! Hiruzen Ryo's eyes grew brighter and brighter. He continuously used Crystal Release to simulate various conventional techniques of other attributes, enjoying himself immensely. A morning quickly passed, and Hiruzen Ryo had simulated at least dozens of similar ninjutsu traits. I remember that although the Crystal Release, Kekkai Genkai, is all-powerful, it also has a fatal flaw, which is that it is afraid of sound ninjutsu. Hiruzen Ryo thought to himself. In the original story, Orochimaru built the Hidden Sound Village and had a group of ninjas under his command who could use sound ninjutsu. Various ultrasonic and infrasonic waves were the nemesis of Crystal Release. That's why Orochimaru was able to easily control Gurren. It's always good to have more skills. And for me, these weaknesses are not weaknesses, because this was already the 6th Kekkai Genkai he had obtained. After fusing with the Crystal Release, Hiruzen Ryo's physical fitness had improved again by a large margin. Maintaining 20 shadow clones was no longer a problem. At this moment, Hiruzen Ryo only felt that he had inexhaustible strength in his body. Stronger strength gave Hiruzen Ryo stronger confidence, and his entire temperament changed again. It's about time. There should be a reply from Rurin. Hiruzen Ryo ended his stance, preparing to take a trip to Rurin. Chapter 51. Encore, critical review of Kakashi, the Hokage's office in the early morning. If it was just a simple coup, Konoha would certainly not intervene immediately. But the problem was that Rurin was currently relying on the power of the Dragon Vein to carry out large-scale armament. The entire city-state began to mobilize all its citizens into soldiers. They were producing various puppets day and night, seemingly plotting something. From a strategic point of view, with the Third Shinobi World War launched, an unstable small country would bring unpredictable changes and risks to Konoha's battle situation. In order to suppress this bud and allow Konoha to concentrate on fighting against Sunagakure, it was very necessary to quell it. Hokage-sama. Minato Namikaze glanced to the side, seeing Hiruzen Ryo standing there leisurely. History was beginning to change. So, should Kakashi be allowed to carry out this mission together? Minato Namikaze hesitated for a second before making a decision. Hokage-sama, I request that Kakashi Hitaki also carry out this mission. Minato Namikaze submitted Kakashi's mission report. After becoming a Chunin, Kakashi performed excellently, rushing towards the path of a Jonin all the way. Although Kakashi's upper limit was locked due to poor dynamic vision, but it was still no problem to become an ordinary Jonin. As for Obito and Rin, the two were preparing for the Chunin exam. The two, who were still Genin, would not participate in this mission. Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced at the information. This mission was classified as S rank. Kakashi was just a Chunin, although in special circumstances, Chunin would also be assigned to such difficult missions. But it was always an exception, unlike the theatrical animation. In the theatrical animation, this mission was only classified as A rank. But in this time and space, because of Gurren's early discovery and the investigation by Konoha Umbu, the mission difficulty level suddenly became S rank. After all, a city full of puppet weapons was no joke. Hiruzen Sarutobi first signaled to Minato Namikaze with his eyes, indicating that he had no other intentions. Then, he looked at his eldest son. Hiruzen Ryo, what do you think? Tsukumo Hitaki was Hiruzen Ryo's teacher. Hiruzen Ryo was usually familiar with Kakashi and even evaluated Kakashi's qualifications, all of which corresponded. After many comprehensive factors, Hiruzen Sarutobi decided to listen to his eldest son's thoughts. Hokage-sama, I think this mission is a very good opportunity for training. Kakashi is too arrogant and has not been tempered by iron fists. This mission will just open his eyes. Hiruzen Ryo replied immediately. Although the final mission may cause everyone to lose their memories due to Minato Namake's sealing technique, but the physical situation would still remain. What he meant was that the sealing technique could seal memories, but could not seal physical phenomena. If Kakashi was injured in the mission, or his mind was traumatized, these traces would still exist. So this mission could also allow Kakashi to see reality clearly to some extent. Well, then let's set off. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled slightly, knowing that Hiruzen Ryo would protect Kakashi in this mission. Then, there was no problem. Soon, the group left Konoha. When Kakashi learned that he would be participating in an S-rank mission, he seemed very excited. Tsukumo Ataki was still alive, so Kakashi in this world was still relatively arrogant in temperament, felt good about himself, and did not have a gloomy meaning. Pride outweighed calmness, and he looked more rash, or rather reckless. Along the way, the group crossed the plains. Kakashi ran and looked at Hiruzen Ryo beside him. "Young Master Ryo," my father said, "if I have any questions about taijutsu, I can come and ask you." Kakashi's sudden words had a bit of provocation, but there was indeed an intention to ask for advice. Before, Might Guy became famous in one battle, and Guy's taijutsu became increasingly sophisticated. As Hiruzen Ryo said before, some people run slowly at first, but later they will run faster and faster. Guy is that person. Kakashi must have seen Guy's rapid growth and felt some pressure. In terms of taijutsu, Tsukumo Hatake was not good at that kind of move-by-move, fist-to-fist confrontation. So, if Kakashi wanted to improve in this area, he could only come and ask Hiruzen Ryo, who was also a taijutsu master. In the entire Konoha, only a few people, such as the third Hokage, Princess Tsunade, and Might Due, could surpass Hiruzen Ryo in taijutsu. After thinking about it, and having been ridiculed by Hiruzen Ryo before, Kakashi naturally approached him. Taijutsu. Hiruzen Ryo glanced at Kakashi with a cold tone. Even Guy, who you think is a dead last, can stand in the ranks of the strongest in the ninja world in at most 20 years. And with your qualifications, even if you practice for 100 years until you die, you will never be able to catch up with his tail. Hiruzen Ryo's words stabbed Kakashi's self-esteem fiercely. Kakashi's face immediately turned pale. "You're talking nonsense," he subconsciously retorted. How could he be inferior to Guy? He couldn't even catch up with his tail, even after practicing for 100 years? How is that possible? Minato Namake's eyes flickered. Having the future memories seen by the great Toad Sage, he knew that young Master Ryo was telling the truth. In the future, Guy would really become the strongest ninja in taijutsu among ordinary people, let alone practicing for 100 years. Even if Kakashi practiced for 1,000 years, he could only eat Guy's exhaust fumes. What reason do I have to deceive you? Truth is harsh, and honest advice is unpleasant to the ear. Don't you know this principle? Hiruzen Ryo glanced at Kakashi, also wanted to beat Kakashi a bit, by the way. Your advantage is that you grow fast in the early stage, which is equivalent to strong early comprehension and a high starting point. You also have the brain power to develop ninjutsu yourself, but obviously, it can only be said to be average compared to those strong people. Your dynamic vision is poor. The moves you develop are likely to be unusable and are failed works. After a series of critical reviews, Kakashi's face became paler and paler. Alas, it would be very good to be able to become an ordinary jonin in this life. There's no hope. Hiruzen Ryo looked away and stopped talking, because the more he said, the more useless he felt Kakashi was. Chapter 52. Rurin Puppets Pressing the City. The city is about to crumble. 99. Section 99. From childhood, Kakashi had always been surrounded by the halo of a genius. Now he was being struck again by Sarutobi Ryo, taking things to a new level. Hearing these sharp words, he, who had always been pampered, had no idea that he had simply been well protected by those around him. Kakashi had never witnessed true cruelty. Whether it was Hitaki Tsukumo or Minato Namikaze, both had intentionally indulged Kakashi's temperament. This pampering ultimately nurtured Kakashi into a prodigal son. In the end, it took Obito Uchiha, certified by Tobarama Senju as a member of a naturally evil clan, to correct him with the will of fire, completely transforming Kakashi. It has to be said, this is extremely ironic. After hearing these words, Kakashi's speed involuntarily slowed down. Sweat broke out on his forehead, his head twitched, and he fell into a state of self-doubt. At this time, Sarutobi Ryo had extremely dazzling achievements. He killed as soon as he made a move, and those he killed were all experts. In the ninja world, he had already become a being known to everyone. The name Black Reaper was in no way inferior to the name Yellow Flash. Upon seeing Minato Namikaze, Small Fry and Cannon Fodder could abandon their mission and flee. But the problem was, upon seeing Sarutobi Ryo, there was a high probability they would leave behind a corpse on the spot. Someone would definitely die. Therefore, obviously, the title of Reaper was more terrifying, because it really meant losing your life. Such a strong person, giving a sharp critique, naturally spoke the truth. So Kakashi's heart began to waver. However, it was clear that Kakashi had extremely strong self-esteem. Kakashi, not yet poisoned by Obito's will of fire, still held the idea that he was superior to others, an elite genius. So, after a moment, he gritted his teeth and actually ran over, lowered his stance, and requested Sarutobi Ryo to teach him taijutsu. In taijutsu, you can't follow Guy's path. The best route is to learn the swift path of your father and your teacher, acting as a remote turret, provided that you don't encounter enemies like I, who are speed types. Minato Namikaze, who was on the side, was also in a difficult position at this moment. To be honest, if Kakashi didn't have the Sharingan, his upper limit would be an ordinary background jonin. So what he was waiting for was Obito to receive his bento. Obito was taken away by Madara Uchiha, transplanted with white Zetsu cells, gained some of the first Hokage's power, and then awakened the Mangekyo. If he and Kakashi each had one eye, then Kakashi could still be saved. Before that, cultivating Kakashi was pretty much left to fate. Yes, fate, because Minato Namikaze didn't know how to teach Kakashi. His path was completely unsuitable for Kakashi. He couldn't learn the Flying Thunder God technique. The Rasengan consumed too much chakra, and Kakashi could only create his own Chidori. But the problem was that the Chidori required excellent dynamic vision. Going back and forth, it was a dead cycle, unsolvable. In fact, Minato Namikaze had always been optimistic about Obito. Even without second playthrough memories, he felt that Obito would one day surpass Kakashi. After all, the Sharingan was an unreasonable thing. That's why he had said to Obito more than once, "Obito, we will eventually become Hokage." But he had never said such words to Kakashi even once. Although in the second playthrough memories, Kakashi eventually became the 6th Hokage. In addition, Kushina also liked Obito the most among the 3 children, treating Obito as a younger brother. So, Kakashi's cultivation was pretty much left to fate. As for the matter of Obito being tricked by Madara, resulting in Rin's death and Obito's corruption, Minato Namikaze believed that he already had second playthrough memories and would not let Obito go astray again. Think about it. Obito, with the Mangekyo and white Zetsu / Hashirama cells, would be such an excellent seedling. This time, Madara, I won't let you have your way. Night. The team began to rest. Kakashi came over again. Sarutobi Ryo naturally ignored him, using this as an opportunity to knock him down a peg. But Kakashi was determined to follow behind Sarutobi Ryo. He stubbornly didn't say a word, just kept following. Seeing Kakashi like this, Minato Namikaze didn't stop him, because he really didn't have any good ideas to teach Kakashi. So, if young Master Sarutobi had a way. 2 days later, the group, covered in dust, arrived at a certain place on the border between the land of wind and the land of rivers. Yellow sand filled the sky, and strong winds blew. In this desert area, there was a city-state surrounded by green vegetation. It didn't make sense no matter how you looked at it. Those trees should have been created by chakra. Sarutobi Ryo looked at the ring of vegetation, lost in thought. It's the power of the dragon vein. Minato Namikaze's thought. Hundreds of meters of spires reached straight into the clouds. The large towering building complex looked even more prosperous and ahead of its time than Konoha. The design of these buildings came from the hands of a future person, Lushan. To be honest, Sarutobi Ryo was quite interested in the future. After all, parallel worlds, time travel, these things were closely related to him. So, what would the future of this world be like? If you can catch my eye in this mission, I will find a way to help you improve your strength. Sarutobi Ryo looked at Kakashi and gave him a promise. For your father's sake. Kakashi. Soon, the group entered Lulan together. As they approached the wall, Minato Namikaze instructed, "Everyone be careful. It is said that there are many puppets here." As soon as Minato Namikaze finished speaking, a dark mass of puppets flew out from inside the wall. They looked like 2-meter-tall robots, but the body structure was mostly made of wood. In terms of weapons, they were made of metals such as steel. Honglin was injured by them. It was previously confirmed that the weapons were not coated with poison, but it was hard to say now. The dark, oppressive puppet offensive seemed to have the intention of dispersing the invading enemy, and also had the intention of preventing it in advance. Behind puppet threads. At this moment, Ruri whispered a reminder. Behind these puppets, they were controlled by faint purple puppet threads, like marionettes. And almost all the towers in this city-state were chakra transmission sources. It was like a TV transmitting tower. Sarutobi Ryo's right eye pupil contracted, and he quickly followed the chakra lines to see the chakra structure of the entire city-state. I'm afraid simply cutting the puppet threads won't stop them. Chapter 53. Young Master Ryo has the potential to be Hokage. Minato is in danger. The guess was quickly confirmed. Kakashi took the lead, throwing kunai and cutting off the connections behind them. As the puppets were about to fall down after losing power, the surrounding towers surged with chakra. Chakra lines projected from the spires reconnected to the puppets. Each tower here is a chakra transmission relay. Minato Namikaze, who possessed excellent sensing abilities, immediately shouted, "We must bypass them and find the power source." The so-called power source naturally referred to the boss of this mission, Lushan. Under attack, these puppets locked onto Kakashi as the target in the first instance, according to the jutsu settings. Whoosh! Sharp, 3-pronged claws stabbed fiercely at Kakashi. Kakashi barely dodged. The palm of another puppet behind him turned into a black hole, and a purple chakra light brewed within it. Boom! With a burst of expanding roar, a stream of purple light was emitted from the wrist. Kakashi flew back, immediately creating distance from the enemy. However, in the next moment, accompanied by a flash. 100 Section 100 from the waist mechanisms. All the puppets launched multiple blades resembling cluster missiles. Purple chakra trailed behind them, drawing unpredictable and graceful paths in the air. What's going on with these guys? Kakashi's eyes widened, his heart filled with surprise. It wasn't as if he hadn't fought against Sand Village's puppet masters before, but those puppets were, in fact, traceable. However, the puppets he faced this time not only concealed their puppeteer, but their weapon systems also exceeded the standards of this era. Just as Kakashi was about to be overwhelmed by countless cluster projectiles, a gust of wind swept past, and a thunderous sound exploded beside Kakashi's ears. Crushing palm. Sarutobi Ryo unleashed a palm strike, causing the ground to tremble and the mountains to shake. The air burst apart, and the power of destruction directly detonated the countless blades. The flying tools made of refined steel shattered into countless fragments, as if crushed by a tremendous force. This scene left Kakashi dumbfounded. Minato Namikaze, Shibi Aburame, and Choza Akimichi all revealed expressions of astonishment. Is this Sarutobi Ryo-sama's taijutsu? Shibi Aburame, as the second in command of the Aburame clan, whose current leader was his older brother, the legendary insect master, Shirku Aburame. In terms of strength, Shibi Aburame could serve as a substitute for the clan leader. Once Shirku Aburame retired or met with an accident, he would be the next leader. Although he had witnessed the strength of the third Hokage, this was the first time he had witnessed Sarutobi Ryo's specific actions. Dust rained down. Sarutobi Ryo strode forward, continuously swinging his palms. The puppets in front of him shattered one after another, as if they were made of paper. Soon, a pile of fragments lay on the ground. Sarutobi Ryo himself swiftly leaped over the wall and entered the interior of Rorin. This scene filled everyone's hearts with amazement. Each puppet possessed strength comparable to a jonin among the chunin. Yet, Sarutobi Ryo-sama shattered them with a few blows. Naturally, the puppets shattered into fragments could no longer be controlled by the puppet threads projected from the tower. Minato. Choza Akimichi glanced at Minato Namikaze. The latter revealed a thoughtful expression. If they were to compete for the Hokage position, Ryo-sama would be a strong contender. Choza Akimichi thought, perhaps, Shikaku's judgment was wrong. Ryo-sama's talent might be even stronger than Minato's. Well then, let me continue to witness it during this mission. Meanwhile, Kakashi, who had been rescued, revealed an expression of longing. After all, anyone who witnessed such powerful taijutsu would definitely imagine the possibility of learning it themselves. Thinking of this, Kakashi steadied his mind and decided to perform well, striving to earn Ryo-sama's recognition and have him guide him. Rorin's Central Plaza, various musical instruments played, and the voices of the people were boisterous. A red-haired girl stood on the platform of the highest tower, waving to the people below. She was followed by puppet bodyguards, protecting her safety. And this girl was the current queen of Rorin, Sarah. Sarutobi Ryo stood in the shadows, gazing at this scene. Sarah was completely unaware. The countless people in the plaza were actually just puppets. The real people had already been enslaved by Anro-Kuzan and were currently forced to work in sweatshops beneath the surface of Rorin, constantly manufacturing various puppet weapons for Anro-Kuzan's production line. Perhaps out of a twisted sense of humor, Anro-Kuzan did not directly kill Sarah. Instead, he prepared to have her die in an accident. Thus, the puppet behind her subtly moved its fingers, and Sarah, completely unaware, suddenly lost her footing and fell from the suddenly shattered platform. Falling from a height of several hundred meters onto the ground would definitely turn her into a pile of mush. Watching Sarah scream, Sarutobi Ryo did not hesitate and immediately formed hand seals. Crystal release. Crack, crack, crack. A black dragon composed of black crystals roared as it flew into the sky. Under Sarutobi Ryo's control, it was as easy to use as an arm. Crystal release. Descending dragon. This giant black dragon was about 6 meters long. The overall shape was streamlined, and unlike the dragons in the Naruto world, the black dragon with 4 claws and dragon scales looked more like a Chinese dragon. Chakra is a combination of physical and spiritual power. Ninjutsu is a symbol of a person's energy, spirit, and mind, or rather, spiritual thoughts. Sarutobi Ryo's subconscious believed that a dragon should look like this. Thus, the image of a Chinese dragon appeared. This black dragon was hollow, incredibly light. The freely flying black dragon gently caught the falling Princess Sarah. When Minato Namikaze and the others arrived, what they saw was Princess Sarah leaning against the wind on the back of the black dragon, landing safely. Oh, Queen Sarah. Strange. Sarutobi Ryo saved Princess Sarah, but he didn't pay attention to her. Instead, he looked around, but he didn't see a certain person's figure. If it were the original movie version, Naruto Uzumaki should have also traveled from the future and saved Princess Sarah. Was there a small problem with the details? You are. Sarah, still in shock, looked up at the group. She quickly recognized the mark as that of the Leaf Ninja she had seen several times as a child. Each time her mother entrusted a mission, she would have Leaf Ninja carry it out. Queen Sarah, as you can see, we are Leaf Ninja. I'm the son of the third Hokage, Sarutobi Ryo. Sarutobi Ryo stated his identity, quickly winning Sarah's trust. The identity of the Hokage's son was incredibly useful at this moment. "Thank you for saving me," Sarah quickly thanked him. Before she could continue to express her gratitude, Sarutobi Ryo directly interrupted her and told her the purpose of their visit. "Your mother, the previous queen, has already met with misfortune. The culprit is the minister you trusted the most, that man from outside Enrokuzen, and all the civilians in the plaza that you believe in are actually just Enrokuzen's puppets." Chapter 54. Sarutobi Ryo proves the way with power. It wasn't difficult to make Sarah realize the truth, for Sarutobi Ryo was very good at facing reality and making others face reality. After learning about what had happened in her country, Sarah's heart was in turmoil, and she fell into a temporary state of confusion. "Our people were seriously injured, almost dying. No matter what you think, we will not leave the culprit alone." Sarutobi Ryo nodded, indicating that Sarah could do whatever she wanted. But Enrokuzen had to die. Not long after, Sarutobi Ryo went to the underground of Rorin through the steps. As he went deeper into the center, the place gradually became filled with smoke. "It's steam," Sarutobi Ryo thought as he looked at the underground factory that was a world of its own. The underground of Rorin was full of machines and contraptions. Enrokuzen had already built this place into a war factory. There were all kinds of humanoid puppets patrolling around, and the ragged Rorin nationals, with chains on their feet, were working hard to turn the machines, driving the operation of the steam engines. Sarutobi Ryo shook his head, his heart filled with contempt for Enrokuzen. It was like opening a bank ATM and finding a teller squatting inside. It seemed advanced, but in a sense it was still very backward, still using human resources. After scanning the scene, Sarutobi Ryo went straight down the steps and headed towards the depths of the factory. Soon, Sarutobi Ryo's appearance aroused the vigilance of the puppets, but they did not attack immediately. Instead, they stared at Sarutobi Ryo, standing still in place. This situation could only explain one thing. They were being controlled in real time. Tap, tap, tap. As footsteps sounded, a figure appeared on the high platform of the underground space. This was a man dressed in desert style, somewhat overweight, looking gloomy. "Black Reaper." From his mouth, he murmured Sarutobi Ryo's title. This title was known to all the ninjas in the ninja world. 101. Section 101, but if it comes from the mouth of a future person, it represents other meanings. And Lushan stared at Sarutobi Ryo, wondering what he was thinking. And soon, he laughed loudly. "Black Reaper, no matter how powerful you are, you will die here today." Ka 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 ka. The sound of countless puppets came from all directions. Sarutobi Ryo stood in the center of the hall, his expression very calm. For Sarutobi Ryo, raising his hand is manipulating magnetic fields, completely leeching the Earth's power. So wanting to exhaust him with numbers is impossible. After obtaining the 6th Kekii Genkai crystal release, Sarutobi Ryo's physical qualities increased dramatically again. It can be said that at this time, all of Sarutobi Ryo's stats/physical qualities have reached the peak that the Jonin level can reach. There will never be anyone whose overall stats are stronger than Sarutobi Ryo. With just one step, Sarutobi Ryo can step into the Kage level. Of course, basic qualities, to some extent, only represent blank slate abilities. If you count the extra 6 Kekii Genkai techniques, Sarutobi Ryo can naturally compete with the gatekeeper powerhouses of the Kage level. And all around, no blind spot ninja is Sarutobi Ryo's path. Faced with any situation, Sarutobi Ryo has a way to solve it. As expected of the Black Reaper, looking at the wreckage on the ground, and Lushan's expression changed slightly. Then, he raised his hand, and the next moment, all the fragments on the ground shimmered with a faint purple light. Subsequently, countless fragments split and combined, and a 6-meter-tall puppet giant rose from the ground. In terms of height, it is equivalent to the medium-sized summoning beast summoned by Pain. It is also equivalent to the sushi used by the Uchiha clan after opening the Manjiki. Ka 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 ka. The assembled giant rumbled all over, and under the action of the Ramaika power, it completed its reorganization. White steam spewed out from its body. Then, the 6-meter-tall giant raised its giant fist and slammed it down on Sarutobi Ryo. From a normal point of view, a Jonin, or even a Kage-level ninja, cannot directly resist this behemoth with their body, because this is an absolute difference in mass. However, Sarutobi Ryo didn't dodge or avoid. His left foot stepped forward. With the help of the magnet-release magnetic field rotation, the main body used the rock fist super straight fist taijutsu, supplemented by swift release, to increase the speed of the shot. Sarutobi Ryo was seen punching out. White sound cones appeared around the fist, bringing up the roar of the atmosphere. The steel release on the surface of the skin increased the strength of the body. Multiple Kekkei Genkai and taijutsu merged, thus unleashing a shocking punch. In the shocked eyes of Kakashi and others, the giant puppet fist collided with Sarutobi Ryo's seemingly small human fist. Then, boom! The explosion resounded. The puppet's fist shattered inch by inch, and the force was transmitted from the fist to the arm. Crack, crack. Boom! The entire fist surface, along with half an arm, was actually blown to pieces. Is this still a human? Sarah was dumbfounded, her face full of disbelief. Kakashi was shocked, but his eyes became brighter. Choza Akimichi and Shibi Aburame were dumbfounded. Minato Namike's expression was slightly shadowed. Crystal release. Crystal dragon descent. The next moment, Sarutobi Ryo shouted. The giant dragon condensed from black crystal directly crashed into the giant puppet. After a series of loud booms, I don't know how many machines in the underground space were destroyed. It even directly blasted out a passage to the underground. And that is where the true value of Ran lies, the location of the Ramayaku. Ahui, Ruri, you are responsible for taking Queen Sarah and the others to the surface. Sarutobi Ryo turned his head and said to the stunned crowd, because what follows is the real battle. Minato Namikaze turned his head and gave the same order to Shibi Aburame and Choza Akimichi. Then, he and Kakashi ran towards Sarutobi Ryo. Minato Namikaze, who has the memories of the second playthrough, ignored Lushan standing on the platform, because he knew that this Lushan was just a puppet. The real body is hidden in the deepest part of the underground, probably about to act. Sarutobi Ryo slapped the Lushan puppet standing on the high platform from distance. Lushan, who was still BBB, suddenly stopped his voice and finally calmed down. Then, the three of them ran to the deeper underground without looking back. Chapter 55. Future Minato's memory. The three of them followed the steps and advanced to the dark underground. After the battle, just now, Kakashi no longer doubted Sarutobi Ryo's taijutsu level. He believed that the only one in the entire Konoha who was qualified to teach him taijutsu was young Master Sarutobi Ryo. That earth-shattering punch echoed in Kakashi's heart, making him yearn for it. Ka. Just then, a rustling sound suddenly came from the air. The three stopped and looked up. Between countless tunnels, passages overhead and underfoot, countless puppet parts and individuals flew over. These countless puppets are gathering towards a certain depth in the dark underground. In that case, let you see the power of the ultimate puppet weapon I created. And Lushan's confident roar came from the depths of the underground. I have prepared for this for too long. For this day, to eliminate you, and then replace you. Originally, Holian's serious injury was just a guise. It was a trap designed by Lushan to deliberately lure Sarutobi Ryo to come. This also includes Minato Namikaze. Although Sarutobi Ryo doesn't know what happened in the future, it is clear that Lushan's target is aimed at himself and the yellow flash. Feel my new body. The earth began to rumble. It was as if there was a major earthquake. The three of them stood unsteadily, their bodies swaying. The next moment, a huge giant with a height of more than 20 meters rushed out from the ground. He has a burly upper body and a tail like a centipede/scorpion. His arms are as thick as 2 towers. In terms of height, it can already compete with the tailed beasts. And as a power source, it is the Ramayaku of Ran, which is also the source of power for the entire city-state. Hunching his back and looking down at the earth, and Lushan's total length exceeded 40 meters. If he stood up completely, his height would reach 30 meters. This couldn't help but remind Sarutobi Ryo of snakes, slugs, and other creatures. "Ha! How is it? Are you scared?" And Lushan let out a triumphant roar, like a thunderbolt, resounding throughout Ran. "The entire Ramayaku is the source of my power. My power is endless," backed by the Ramayaku, and Lushan, with the Ramayaku as the foundation, can be said to have become the materialized incarnation of the Ramayaku at this moment. Although there's only a puppet in front of him, it represents the power of the entire Ramayaku. And Lushan opened his mouth and fired a purple chakra cannon. The diameter of the giant cannonball exceeds 6 meters. It is close to the size of the tailed beast ball spit out after the tailed beast appears. The three immediately dodged. The ball of light slammed into the distance, and then caused a huge explosion. The entire night was illuminated, becoming like daylight. Young Master Ryo, we must seal the Ramayaku. Minato Namikaze decided to return to the underground again, enter the deepest part, and seal the Ramayaku. This is the only way to suppress and Lushan's power. Sarutobi Ryo was thinking at this moment, why didn't Naruto Uzumaki appear? Did something happen in the future? No problem, leave it to me here. Sarutobi Ryo nodded, signaling Minato Namikaze to seal the Ramayaku. 102. Section 102. After the two agreed on a plan of action, Minato Namikaze instantly used the body flicker technique and left the scene. Summoning technique. After Minato Namikaze left, Ryo Sarutobi immediately summoned Katsuyu. Kakashi ran to the side to watch the battle. This level of battle was extremely rare and a valuable opportunity to observe. Of course, this level of combat was also something he couldn't interfere with at all. Young Master Ryo, allow me to witness your power. Katsuyu opened its mouth and released a stream of concentrated bioacid. The surface of Lushan that was corroded immediately evaporated, turning into smoke. However, as a beam of purple light struck down from the tower, his puppet body began to regenerate. "Ha! It's useless. As long as the dragon vein is here, I am invincible." With that said, and Lushan's hands turned into sharp blades, and then the blades rotated like a chainsaw. Puppet spinning fist. The 20-meter-tall giant spun around, its power earth-shattering. And Lushan swept across the area, crushing countless objects. Boom, boom, boom. After a series of explosions, and Lushan crashed into Katsuyu's body, and Katsuyu tilted to one side. In terms of absolute power, Katsuyu was inferior to other summoned beasts of the same size. However, and Lushan's impact didn't hurt Katsuyu at all. Even if Katsuyu's flesh was cut open, it wouldn't prevent Katsuyu from reorganizing. "What should we do?" Katsuyu asked in a deep voice. This guy in front of them could regenerate endlessly because of the dragon vein. And when the summoning duration was up, Katsuyu would return to Shikatsu Forest. "Lend me your chakra." Ryo Sarutobi didn't hesitate and directly asked Katsuyu to borrow chakra. The summoned beasts of the three great sage lands all had special abilities. One of Katsuyu's special abilities was to transmit chakra to others. This was a high-level technique that only medical ninjas and perfect Jinchuriki could master, belonging to the category of Yang Release/Yin Release. Crystal Release. Ryo Sarutobi, standing on top of Katsuyu's head, began to form hand seals. Katsuyu hesitated for a moment, but still lent chakra to Ryo Sarutobi. With the borrowing of an extremely large amount of chakra, the chakra within Ryo Sarutobi's body suddenly increased to an unimaginable level. Crystal Wall 8 formations. Crack, crack, crack. 8 huge crystal pillars began to emerge around Lushan. These crystal pillars grew rapidly and finally merged with each other, directly enveloping Lushan within. Because it was a barrier technique, it completely shielded external chakra disturbances. Lushan tried to struggle, but was locked in more and more tightly by the barrier. In the end, he could only watch his body stagnate, solidify, and then hith. As expected of the Black Reaper, Lushan's voice came from the barrier. Before completely solidifying, he still had something to say. But this is not the end. Not the end. Before Ryo, Sarutobi could think about the meaning of these words, the light in Lushan's eyes slowly went out and finally lost its power. Katsuyu, thank you. Ryo, Sarutobi, stared at Lushan in front of him. He was already trapped by the barrier. The chakra of an entire Katsuyu clone had been transformed into the power of the barrier. Lushan wouldn't be able to get out of it for a while. And when Minato Namikaze closed the dragon vein and he completely lost his power source, he would become a turtle in a jar. Ryo Sarutobi solve. On the other side, Minato Namikaze had already gone deep underground and arrived near the eye of the dragon vein. However, the following conversation completely subverted his understanding. Ha ha ha. Yellow Flash, I've been waiting for you for a long time. And Lushan stood next to the eye of the dragon vein, quietly staring at Minato Namikaze who had come. Minato Namikaze immediately held the flying thunder god kunai and took an offensive stance. And Lushan stretched out his hand and activated a certain technique. As a white flash passed, the light instantly illuminated Minato Namikaze. This phenomenon, which was like sunlight shining, was impossible for even Minato Namikaze to avoid. Crap! Just when he thought he was being attacked, some familiar chakra made Minato Namikaze feel inexplicable. This is my chakra. In the white flash, countless memory images flashed back. Intermittently, not continuously. By capturing the limited images, Minato Namikaze suddenly learned many memories that he had never had. No, it should be said, memories of the future, not the original future predicted by the great Toad Sage, but the distorted future that had begun to deviate. Then, live well in the vortex of fearful memories. After transmitting his memories, Lushan's body began to shatter. With a burst of chakra projection, he actually committed suicide in front of Minato Namikaze. Minato Namikaze stared blankly, still watching those future selves transmitting to the past, that is, giving memory information to the current self. Chapter 56. What is the future like? A moment later, Ryo, Sarutobi brought Kakashi to the dragon vein sealing site. Minato Namikaze was already standing next to the dragon vein's formation eye, preparing to apply the seal. At this moment, the dragon vein had already begun to boil. From normal purple, it turned scarlet. The earth continued to shake, indicating that Lushan had triggered the dragon vein, causing an unstable state. If left unchecked, this place would blow everyone to smithereens. Minato, are you ready? Ryo Sarutobi asked. Yeah. Minato Namikaze's expression looked a little complicated. He nodded, quickly hiding the strangeness in his eyes. Receiving the memories transmitted from his future self had shocked Minato Namikaze's mind. And Lushan did not return to the past on his own through the dragon vein, but was sent back by his future self, using Lushan as a carrier to carry the memories of future people. Or perhaps it was because his future self had little experience in transmitting future memories, so the memories that were transmitted back were incomplete. It may also be that the original complete memory was scattered due to the influence of the power of time and space. But in any case, his future self gave his current self many useful things. Among them, including various S-rank techniques, even forbidden techniques. Minato Namikaze didn't know what his future self had encountered to send Lushan back to the past. And Lushan may just be an experimental subject of his future self. However, Minato Namikaze still realized that his future self had selectively chosen the information to be transmitted, rather than sending back all the memories. Different from the original future predicted by the Great Toad Sage. His future self came from the distorted future, which was also the trajectory of the deviation of his current world. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. In any case, with the cultivation memories and techniques given by my future self, I can surpass myself in any time and space. Minato Namikaze calmed his mind and began to seal the dragon vein. Young Master Ryo, the sealing of the dragon vein's power will cause unpredictable changes. It may interfere with our memories. Please be prepared, Minato Namikaze explained. It was not the sealing that caused the memory loss, but Lushan first created a time-space distortion, which would take away memories that should not exist. Yeah, no problem. Ryo Sarutobi also knew a little about the concept of space-time ninjutsu. Knowing that Minato Namikaze's sealing would only correct some things, he let him seal it. Seal! As Minato Namikaze inserted the flying thunder god Kunai into the formation eye, a white light flashed, and everything was corrected. 103. Section 103, The Eve of Dawn. Queen Sarah was leading her people about to survive in a difficult environment. The loss of the dragon vein meant they would lose their homeland and could only seek a new path to survival in a foreign land. After all, the changes in the dragon vein were unpredictable. This was a natural disaster, and human power could not resist it. Allies from Konoha helped the people of Rorin seal the dragon vein, stabilizing the power that was about to go berserk. The above is the memory that everyone has after being corrected. Minato Namikaze stood in the team, looking at Sarah waving goodbye to his side, as well as the people of Rorin. A trace of complexity flashed in his eyes. Everyone had forgotten what happened before. The traces left by the fighting at the scene were also made up as the runaway of Rorin's power. With the application of the sealing technique, this time and space was corrected by the power of time. What Lushan said still echoed his mind. Minato Namikaze thought about all this and embarked on the road home. Just as Sarutobi Ryo also turned around and stepped forward, preparing to leave. His footsteps suddenly stopped. "What's wrong, young Master Ryo?" Kakashi asked from his side. In his memory, this mission was when young Master Ryo showed off his skills and suppressed the runaway puppet. There was no Lushan, no future people, and no conspiracy to harm the country. "It's nothing, I just forgot to take something." Sarutobi Ryo shook his head. But a few lines of brand new text clearly popped up on the retina in front of him. "Will of Fire System. Memory module activated. Play deleted memories?" Yes, Sarutobi Ryo confirmed, and soon, scenes flashed before Sarutobi Ryo's eyes, just like a replay in his mind. After watching the pictures recorded by the system, Sarutobi Ryo suddenly understood. So that's how it is. A dozen shadow clones quickly disappeared from the scene and returned to Rorin. Immediately, Sarutobi Ryo and Minato Namikaze embarked on the road home. A few days later, the team returned to Konoha. Sarutobi Ryo also obtained some useful things from Rorin. Hokage building. Everyone reported the experience of this mission. The mission, which should have been S rank, became A rank because of the sealing technique. Kakashi had one more A rank experience on his resume. Before everyone left, Hiruzen Sarutobi separately called Sarutobi Ryo and Minato Namikaze to stop. Kirigakure sent out Shibi Aburame to investigate the intelligence before, but he hasn't sent back any information for a long time. Hiruzen Sarutobi suddenly mentioned Kirigakure. The ninja village with the least activity in the Third Shinobi World War is Kirigakure Village. The Konoha high-level officials knew that this was a sign of an approaching storm. Kirigakure must be planning something, so they sent out Shibi Aburame. But after a period of time, Shibi Aburame did not send back any information. This made the high-level officials worry about whether he had been killed. So, you should rest for a few days first and be mentally prepared during this time. In case Shibi Aburame was killed, then the Konoha high-level officials would launch new reconnaissance personnel to find out what happened. Understood. Sarutobi Ryo and Minato Namikaze nodded and then left the Hokage's office. The two people who walked out of the building went in different directions, as if they had parted ways. Minato Namikaze recalled the memories, knowledge, and information transmitted by his future self in his mind. These valuable experiences would allow his strength to be improved to another level. Minato Namikaze even planned to start practicing S-rank techniques/forbidden techniques after returning. Sarutobi Ryo planned to go back and study in Lushan's legacy. The two people who had gained something, tacitly chose the same arrangement. Improve strength, become stronger, and then compete for Hokage. However, a doubt finally sprouted in both of their hearts at the same time. What will the future be like? Chapter 57. Kakashi, let me see. Elini, nah. After returning to his residence, Sarutobi plunged into research. Although he was not a puppeteer, according to some records recorded by Lushan, he could also absorb the knowledge for his own use, which also gave Sarutobi Ryo a glimpse of the future. Among them, many techniques for using the power of the dragon vein are remarkable. Puppet regeneration technique is also based on the power of the dragon vein. But in order to complete these techniques, Lushan chose to abandon most of his body. Just like Sasori, only a core was left, because the chakra control of normal ninjas has a limit after all. For example, normal people have 10 fingers. Therefore, puppeteers can only control one puppet with one finger at most. Chio is famous for controlling 10 puppets at the same time with the Chikamatsu puppets. Sasori, who completed the puppet core, was able to perform a 100 marionette technique, controlling more than 100 puppets at the same time. Therefore, chakra control is a difficult problem that many ninjas are trying to solve. Sasori and Lushan chose to abandon most of their bodies. The Hokage clan has Byakugan. Tobirama Senju invented the shadow clone technique as a cultivation cheat. Whether it is a technique or a mutated organ, they're all directions that ninjas are working hard to solve chakra control. Currently, Sarutobi Ryo's cultivation has indeed encountered a bottleneck. Some ideas cannot be realized due to his own chakra control. This cannot be compensated by a shadow clone. For example, Naruto Uzumaki. No matter how hard he tries, no matter how much Azura's chakra possesses him and reincarnates, and no matter how he uses the shadow clone, he cannot learn rotation. Because Naruto Uzumaki does not have Byakugan. Soon, Sarutobi thought of the existence of two girls, Hinata Ruri and Hinata Natsu. According to the system prompt, the reward for one of them is Hokage power, and the other is Hokage branch family chakra control technique. So, the clue to the next breakthrough lies in the two of them. Because of her personality and her status as a teammate, Sarutobi would not rudely attack Ruri. So the target naturally has to choose Hinata Natsu. When Sarutobi came out of the underground secret room, Kakashi had been waiting there for a long time. Young Master seeing Sarutobi reappear, he hurriedly came forward. Are you going to teach me taijutsu? Looking at Kakashi expectantly, Sarutobi shook his head. When did I say I would teach you taijutsu? With your trash aptitude, even if you practice for 10,000 years, you will only be a small fry. Kakashi's face immediately turned red when he heard these words. He was anxious, but you said that I performed very well in the Rorin mission before. Then he reacted. Young Master do you mean you're going to teach me ninjutsu? Kakashi's eyes lit up, and he became happy again. Yes. Sarutobi nodded. I will teach you some theoretical knowledge first, so that you can understand where your own problems lie. Because he may have to go to the Hokage clan later, he can only teach Kakashi for a while now. When the two sat down, Yamanaka and Noichi brought tea. Kakashi wanted a drink, but after thinking about it, he decided to concentrate on listening first. Dynamic vision and reflex nerve can be regarded as one. Reflex nerve is easy to understand. Everyone's brain and neuron thinking reaction speed are different. Dynamic vision is the ability of the eyes to see high-speed moving objects. The optic nerve connects the brain and the eyeball, so there is no problem in saying that these things are one. Some people's brain nerves react slower, and some people's vision is insufficient. The simple explanation made Kakashi nod. Then, young Master is my eyes bad? Or, is my nervous system bad? Your eyes are bad. Sarutobi pointed out Kakashi's problem. Before Kakashi could be happy, Sarutobi continued. The nervous system can only be regarded as second-rate, not top-notch. Compared to monsters like Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju, Kakashi is still one level behind. Even if he has Manjiki in the original work, his eye was taken by Madara Uchiha in a second. 104. Section 104 among them. Even if there is a gap in strength, it is normal for Kakashi to react half a beat slower than these top experts. Rather, it would be ghostly if Kakashi's reflexes were stronger than Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Kakashi's face flushed again. It seemed that he could suffer endless blows here with Ryo. He had never been so aggrieved in his life. You have two solutions now. One is that you fall asleep tonight and wake up tomorrow morning to find that you have Sharingan or Byakugan. The other is to use ninjutsu to strengthen your reflexes, thereby indirectly improving your dynamic vision and reaction. That must be the second one. Kakashi muttered. Use the technique you are developing now, and let me see it. Sarutobi Ryo said, let me see. Kakashi hesitated for a moment, but still began to form hand seals, which were lightning release seals. Then, a group of not very well-formed, very manic lightning release appeared very loosely in his hand. Well, looking at the level, it is already B rank. If you continue, it won't be a problem to practice to A rank. Sarutobi Ryo recognized it at a glance. This is the incomplete A-rank Chidori. This technique is full of Kakashi's whimsy. After seeing Minato Namake's A-rank Rasengan, he began to invent his own ninjutsu. In fact, Chidori is a modified version of Rasengan, or it can be said to be a lightning release modified version. Because Minato Namake's lacked lethality, the direction of Rasengan was attack. Unlike the Rasengan, which only has attack power, Kakashi invented Chidori for another purpose, which is to improve his movement speed. When using Chidori, it is not just like Rasengan, holding a ball stupidly. The lightning release attached to Chidori will flow through Kakashi's whole body, activating his muscles. When human muscles are stimulated by electric current, they will improve efficiency and output. However, it is also extremely easy to fatigue. The idea is fine, but it needs to be modified. Sarutobi Ryo pointed out the path of advancement to Kakashi. Your next training should not only use lightning release to stimulate muscles, but also use lightning release chakra to stimulate the whole body's nerves. Stimulate nerves? Kakashi's eyes widened. He had thought about this kind of thing, but it was very dangerous and would kill people. After unremitting efforts, he finally figured out how to let the current only flow through the muscles. If I'm not careful, my brain will be destroyed, and it would be good if I just become an idiot. Work hard, or continue to be a waste. Sarutobi Ryo glared at him. The lightning release chakra mode of the Hokage clan is only B-rank difficulty, but the technique you developed is a rank difficulty. You can complete an A-rank technique. Can't you figure out how to activate the nerves with B-rank difficulty? But the Hokage clan's physique is special, Kakashi said in a low voice. People have strong physiques, and they can't be ruined no matter how they practice, and they can create miracles with great strength. I am just an ordinary person. Ordinary person? No, I am a genius, the genius boy ninja Kakashi. Think about it carefully, and tell me the result when you think of it. Sarutobi Ryo glanced at Kakashi, then got up and left, heading to the Hyuga clan's residence. Chapter 58. Visiting Ruri, the Hyuga clan's residence, welcomed a special guest today. Sarutobi Ryo's visit made Hayashi Hyuga personally come forward to receive him. Because of Sarutobi Ryo's suggestion last time to let Ruri join the Umbu, Hayashi Hyuga was very frightened by Sarutobi Ryo's arrival today, fearing that Sarutobi Ryo would cause something again. It's nothing, I just came to see Ruri. Sarutobi Ryo sat in the main family's living room and chatted with Hayashi Hyuga, hearing that he was just seeing a teammate/subordinate. Hayashi Hyuga breathed a sigh of relief. Judging from her appearance, it is obvious that this is the mother of Hinata Hyuga and Hanabi Hyuga. What a beauty! The traditional Yamato Nadeshiko image is probably like this. By the way, young Master Ryo, I wonder how the war situation has been recently. Hayashi Hyuga suddenly asked a question. The situation of the Third Ninja World War seemed to be much more severe than the previous two wars. Although the higher-ups intentionally concealed some things, Hayashi Hyuga still keenly noticed it. The situation is not optimistic. Sarutobi Ryo looked over directly and gave a conclusion. Iwagakure has more than 15,000 ninjas, but it's just a small fight and hasn't really launched a full-scale attack. Sunagakure is confronting us. Kimogakure has repeatedly harassed the border. Kirigakure is eyeing us covetously, and it is said that they have reoccupied the ruins of Yuzushiogakure. It can be said that Konoha is now besieged on all sides. To be exact about the odds of winning, unless Inoki is dizzy and sends 10,000 IWA ninjas to Kimogakure to die, as in the original book. By the way, he exhausted the third Reikage to death, causing Kimogakure to withdraw its troops and shrink back, and Killer Bee was imprisoned in Unreikyo. Otherwise, Konoha is in danger of extinction. This is not alarmist talk. You must know that in the original book, Iwagakure sent out 10,000 heads. Only some remnants were left. Inoki finally made a desperate move and sent 1,000 IWA ninjas to cross Kusagakure and invade the Land of Fire. Konoha, which had run out of ammunition and food, had to send the Minato Namikaze team to cover the rear, cut off the enemy supply line, and force the enemy to retreat. Instead of directly killing 1,000 people, this is already very telling. In the later stages of the war, Konoha was having difficulty fighting even 1,000 enemies, and would probably die on the spot when facing 10,000 fully staffed IWA ninjas. After casually talking about the current situation, Sarutobi Ryo got up and left the scene. AKA, you lead young Master Ryo. Hayashi Hyuga instructed Natsu Hyuga, who was standing outside, to accompany him. And this is exactly what Sarutobi Ryo wanted. After Natsu Hyuga led Sarutobi Ryo away from here, Hayashi Hyuga couldn't help but feel worried. Is what young Master Ryo said true? Or is he just probing as Hyuga? If it's just probing the Hyuga clan, just like Ruri joining the Umbu, the Hyuga clan's future survival strategy will have to be adjusted accordingly. But if it's true, it means that the building is about to collapse. If Konoha is ever in a moment of survival, the Hyuga clan should also plan a way to survive as soon as possible. That is, to preserve themselves and continue to protect the inheritance of the Byakugan. Hayashi, why don't we ask the elders to come over and discuss it? Hayashi Hyuga's fiancée, Hazuki Hyuga, observed his expression and said to her fiancé, Hayashi Hyuga, well, that's the only way. Natsu Hyuga, right? Sarutobi Ryo followed behind Natsu Hyuga and suddenly asked, Yes, young Master Ryo. The pretty maid of the branch family nodded. She is about the same age as Rin Noera and has already grown up. The white maid outfit on her body is particularly charming. Sarutobi Ryo stared at her with appreciation in his eyes. The dark green, ear-length short hair is very suitable for this style. Maid, following Natsu Hyuga into the courtyard of the branch family. Compared to the main family, this side is a bit more crowded. After all, the branch family has a large number of people, but the area is also more extensive. Soon, Sarutobi Ryo saw Hisashi Hyuga practicing gentle fist in the courtyard. His practice was intermittent. He would practice gentle fist for a while, and then stop to think. It didn't seem like he was thinking about how to cultivate, but rather about his own destiny. Sarutobi Ryo was very clear about this contradictory psychology. Because Hisashi Hyuga possesses abilities no less than his brother Hayashi Hyuga, every time he used gentle fist, he would start to doubt his life. Why do I, who have the same talent, become a member of the branch family just because I was born a little later? Hisashi Hyuga's gloomy face and melancholy are completely opposite to his brother's temperament. Looking around, he didn't see Ruri. Natsu Hyuga immediately reminded him. Young Master Ryo, Lady Ruri usually stays alone in her room, contemplating. Finally, Natsu Hyuga said the word contemplation. In fact, everyone who understands understands. It's just avoiding the world and not wanting to come out. Yes. Sarutobi Ryo nodded and walked to Hisashi Hyuga's side. After a while, Hisashi Hyuga noticed someone coming. Young Master Ryo? He blinked his eyes, very surprised, wondering what wind had blown young Master Ryo here. Then, Hisashi Hyuga wanted to say something, but closed his mouth again. Finally, he still knew to speak. Young Master Ryo Ruri is in the house. Hisashi Hyuga pointed to a separate courtyard. Obviously, Ruri was unwilling to live with others, so she lived alone in a small courtyard. Yes, I have some things to talk to Ruri about the Umbu. Sarutobi Ryo waved the Umbu banner. Hisashi Hyuga looked at Sarutobi Ryo's departing back, thoughtful. 105. Section 105. As Sarutobi Ryo entered the private courtyard, Hyuga Natsu stepped forward and gently knocked on the door. Ruri-sama, Ryo Shasama has come to visit. Silence. After waiting for a moment, the door opened. Ruri took the initiative to open the sliding door. Although she didn't speak, Sarutobi Ryo knew that she was allowing him to enter. Thus, Sarutobi Ryo, with years of tacit understanding, quickly entered her boudoir. The room was very clean, with a faint fragrance. She sat cross-legged on the tatami mat. Ruri knelt and sat opposite him, facing each other across the low table. Hyuga Natsu was about to leave to create a private environment for the two to talk, but Sarutobi Ryo stopped her. Miss Natsu, you don't need to leave. It's nothing that others can't hear. Sarutobi Ryo's words made Hyuga Natsu feel doubtful, but she still walked over and stood aside. Chapter 59. Hyuga Hisashi entrusts wife and children. Ruri, I have now mastered 6 bloodline limits. Ryo Shasama said that he has 6 bloodline limits. This. Hyuga Natsu just thought Ryo Shasama was joking. Although Ryo Shasama's reputation has been growing lately, how should I put it? 6 is too exaggerated. I'm afraid he's just trying to make Ruri-sama happy because she's in a bad mood. I'm only one small step away from entering the Kage level. Sarutobi Ryo assessed his basic qualities. In the official Naruto databook, there is something called comprehensive basic stats. From Jinin to Chunin to Jonin, there are actually strict numerical representations. For example, the limit for Jinin is 38. Shikamaru during the Chunin exams happened to have this value. If it is greater than or equal to this value, there's a chance to become a Chunin. Another example is that among the special Jonin, the strongest ninja is Marino Ibiki, with a total value of 55. Exceeding this value allows one to become a Jonin. Among the Jonin, Kurenai Yuhi's value is 58, and Shizen also has a similar value. The two are the gatekeepers among the Jonin. At the end of Part 1, Kakashi's value is 66, and Sarutobi Ryo estimates. At this time, his basic value is probably 67, which is close to the level of his elderly father, Sarutobi Hiruzen. But note that the third Hokage in his old age has severely diminished stats. It is the level after degeneration, but years of experience are still there. Sarutobi Ryo at this age naturally has less experience than his aging father, Sarutobi Hiruzen. However, in terms of physical fitness, he has completely surpassed his old father. Going further up, every step forward is like an insurmountable gap. This is easy to understand. Moreover, the strength of a ninja at this level cannot be judged solely by basic qualities. The total strength of a ninja basic stats plus ninjutsu / bloodline limit / bloodline elimination / ninja tools. This formula holds true. Now, I have the initial ability to rewrite fate. Sarutobi Ryo took a deep breath and looked out the door. Years of hard work, years of forbearance, keeping a low profile. Finally, he has reached the point where he is only one step away from the Kage level. Of course, if you count the ability to summon Katsuyu and the assistance of the bloodline limit, the total combat power can definitely compete with the Kage level. Rewrite fate? Hyuga Natsu listened silently on the side. Fate. This word is something that the people of the Hyuga clan often mention. The branch family members are branded with the caged bird seal shortly after birth, when they are still children. The fate of the branch family is to serve the main family, to do their best for the main family until death. Rewriting fate or something. It sounds like something from another dimension. Ruri, I have never told you before that I want to help you change your fate. Sarutobi Ryo glanced over and stared at the expressionless girl in front of him. In her crystal clear eyes, There is no brilliance, only dullness. She stared at the table, without saying a word, as always. Because I didn't have the power before, and saying it would be like drawing a big cake. Unreliable. Sarutobi Ryo shook his head. He wouldn't learn from someone who just likes to draw big cakes. Now I have the power, so I promise you, I will find a way to change your situation and change the fate of the Hyuga clan. Sarutobi Ryo solemnly promised Ruri. What is the will of fire? The will of fire is to protect important people or things. For Sarutobi Ryo, Hyuga Ruri, who grew up with him and was a teammate in the same squad, is one of his most important people. After saying that, Sarutobi Ryo got up, nodded, and bid farewell to Ruri. Ryo Shasama, are you leaving? Hyuga Natsu quickly followed and went out. Ruri knelt in place, expressionless, without moving. Inject the will of fire into Hyuga Ruri. Progress 10%. Hyuga Natsu walked in the courtyard, her steps a little messy, because she heard something she shouldn't have heard. The branch family maid looked up, frequently looking at the young man walking in front. The other party is the son of the Hokage, with a noble status. But he said that he wanted to change Ruri's fate and change the words of Hyuga. What does this mean? Is it saying that the higher-ups are going to attack the Hyuga clan? Hyuga Natsu felt uneasy and a little disturbed. She didn't know whether she should report what she had just heard to Hisashi-sama. Ryo Shasama. Just as Hyuga Natsu hesitated, Sarutobi Ryo suddenly stopped. Ryo Shasama. In front, someone also called Sarutobi Ryo's name. May I have a word aside? It was Hyuga Hisashi. He glanced at Hyuga Natsu. The meaning was obvious. He didn't want Hyuga Natsu to hear the conversation between the two. Yes. Sarutobi Ryo nodded and followed Hyuga Hisashi into his room. Outside the door, Hyuga Natsu didn't know whether to stay or leave. On the one hand, she wanted to hear the conversation between the two. On the other hand, she didn't know if she should report the matter to Hisashi-sama now. Perhaps Hisashi-sama has noticed Ryo Shasama's intention, so he wants to persuade Ryo Shasama. Thinking this way, Hyuga Natsu stayed in place, pricked up her ears, and tried her best to listen to the conversation between the two in the room. Ryo Shasama, I have carefully considered what you said before. Hyuga Hisashi clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and finally made a certain decision. I have thought about it carefully. With me, I cannot give Ruri a promise and happiness. Hyuga Hisashi gave a wry smile, and the caged bird seal on his forehead seemed to throb faintly. Once a branch family, always a branch family. But, why is he still unwilling? Unwilling, I don't care about myself, but Ruri growing up with Hyuga Ruri since childhood sweethearts. Hyuga Hisashi watched Ruri's mood become more and more gloomy every day. If this continues, perhaps she will eventually wither directly and die in depression. He didn't want to see his childhood sweetheart have such an ending. He didn't want her to wither. So, Ryo Shasama, do you have a way to save Ruri? Hyuga Hisashi looked up, his eyes looking at the handsome young man opposite him. Yes. Sarutobi Ryo gave Hyuga Hisashi a definite answer. This answer made Hyuga Hisashi slowly widen his eyes. But before that, Sarutobi Ryo said, looking out the door. 106. Section 106. Hinata Natsu's posture of eavesdropping was extremely obvious. I understand Hinata Hisashi did not hesitate at all, directly getting up and rushing out. Before Hinata Natsu could react, he struck her with a palm. A moment later, Hinata Hisashi brought Hinata Natsu in, capturing her. This was determination and also surrender. Firewall weapon number 1. Hinata Natsu. The Hinata clan has many branch family members, and some branch family members can find happiness in a life of servitude. Hinata Natsu was one of those who had been completely brainwashed. She had been raised from a young age to be a maid serving the main family, and she was completely loyal to the main family. If Hinata Hisashi and Hinata Hazuki were to marry in the future and have children, Hinata Natsu would most likely become a childminder as well. From this, one can see her position. Previously, Sarutobi Ryo's frank conversation with Hinata Hizashi was also to confirm Hinata Hizashi's position. Now, Hinata Hizashi has already made a show of surrendering, showing his determination to make Ruri happy. Then it was time for his side to take action. I will take her back for the time being. If others ask, to say that I have something about Ruri that I want to ask Hinata Natsu about in private. Sarutobi Ryo got up, directly grabbed Hinata Natsu, and in the instant of using swift release, he disappeared silently from the scene, without even causing a ripple of airflow. This body flicker technique left Hinata Hizashi dumbfounded. Soon, Hinata Hizashi calmed down. Even he had not understood Ryo-sama's actions just now. Ryo-sama's strength is probably already at the top level. In the entire Konoha, there won't be many who are his opponents. Hinata Hizashi calmed his mind and quietly closed the door. For the sake of his childhood sweetheart Ruri being able to obtain happiness, he decided to bet everything. Even if he was a branch family member, he had the courage and the idea to resist. Not long after, Sarutobi Ryo sneaked back to his residence. In the courtyard, Guren was practicing crystal release. In the dark underground, Hinata Natsu slowly woke up. She opened her eyes and found that her hands and feet were bound. Red ropes bound her body, outlining a budding figure with knots. Her arms, folded behind her back, were tightly knotted. The Hinata branch family girl, dressed in a maid outfit, immediately widened her eyes. She looked around and found herself in an unfamiliar environment. Whereas this in the dark underground, candlelight flickered. Sarutobi Ryo stood in the shadows. "You're awake?" In the quiet underground, there was not a sound, so quiet that even a pin dropping on the ground could be heard. "Ryo-sama," Hinata Natsu exclaimed in surprise. She only remembered being knocked unconscious by Hizashi-sama. Why would Hizashi-sama do that? "I have something to ask of you." Sarutobi Ryo stepped out of the shadows and came to the girl. White eyes were so conspicuous, coupled with dark green short hair. She had qualities different from other girls. What is it?" Hinata Natsu struggled subconsciously. She didn't understand why she had become like this. And where was this? Ruri sighed. "I'll have to trouble you to take care of her in the future." Sarutobi Ryo slowly asked Hinata Natsu to take care of Ruri. As the one-sided conversation deepened, Hinata Natsu's expression slowly became calm, and then took on a hint of contempt. "Ryo-sama, excuse my frankness, Ruri-sama is clearly in a high position in the branch family, but she doesn't know how to be grateful to the main family." Hinata Natsu spoke about Hinata Ruri's faults in a strong tone. She spoke, and Sarutobi Ryo listened. The general idea was that Ruri, a member of the branch family, actually dared not to be grateful to the main family. Truly ungrateful. Oh, after listening to her statement, Sarutobi Ryo nodded. "You've been instilled with such thinking since you were young, so it's normal to have such thoughts. But just because you're used to being a slave doesn't mean others are too." Hinata Natsu immediately frowned when she heard the word slave. Before she could refute, all kinds of voices immediately sounded. Hinata Natsu was stunned, and then sluggish. The summoning weapon of the Sarutobi clan quickly expanded and rose. "My strength is almost there, so I need someone to be an undercover agent to monitor the Hinata for me." Sarutobi Ryo stared at the sluggish Hinata girl and said his true purpose. According to the timeline, if it was the original work, it was almost time for Hinata Hizashi to get married. But in this world, Hinata Hizashi took the initiative to entrust his wife and children, entrusting Ruri's happiness to him. That is to say, he will not marry Ruri, but he will inevitably face pressure from the main and branch families. At that time, it will be more troublesome for him to explain. Therefore, Sarutobi Ryo decided to insert an undercover spy into the Hinata clan. In order not to arouse suspicion, the most suitable candidate was Hinata Natsu, who came from the branch family but served the main family. In this way, he could know about the affairs of both the main and branch families at the first time. The Hinata clan still retains the slave system. The group of people is a bit extreme. In order to prevent it in advance, it is necessary to insert a spy. Hinata Natsu was so shocked that she couldn't even speak. She opened her small mouth and made sounds. Her gaze was completely fixed on the weapon summoned by Sarutobi Ryo, which shows the weapon's terrifying degree. Sarutobi Ryo, who had fused 6 bloodline limits, was of course extraordinary in strength. Papa. He patted the Hinata girl's cheek with the weapon. She, who was paralyzed on the ground, immediately retreated backward as if frightened. But at this moment, she forgot one thing. She was bound by ropes, so it was difficult to escape. Sarutobi Ryo stepped forward gently. Come, let's have a good sparring session, and let me see the Hinata clan's prestige, Sarutobi Ryo said. Come and spar, don't be polite. The summoning weapon attacked mercilessly. Ugh. Hinata Natsu took a hit, her eyes looking up at Sarutobi Ryo, almost crying. And just after the first taijutsu move was made, Sarutobi Ryo slowly said to her, You, a member of the branch family, came to me. If others know that you came here voluntarily, what will others think? Giving Hinata Natsu time to think after a moment, Sarutobi Ryo continued. Others will say that you took the opportunity to join the 6th squad of the Umbu through Ruri, deliberately approached me. They will say that you are not chaste and want to cling to me, right? As the glorious inheritor of the will of fire. Absolutely no one would have thought that Sarutobi Ryo would attack Hinata Natsu. If the truth comes out, others will only think that Hinata Natsu took the initiative to have ideas. Hinata Natsu, realizing Sarutobi Ryo's implication, immediately showed an unimaginable expression. She didn't understand how things had become like this. Sarutobi Ryo gave a low shout, and the summoning weapon struck again. Hinata Natsu was in pain, but could only look up and silently endure everything. Time passed minute by minute, and in the underground space, the sparring between the two continued. Chapter 61. The building is about to collapse. Konoha's Crisis of Destruction 107. Section 107. The next day, before dawn, Sarutobi Ryo retreated. He had acquired some of the chakra control techniques of the Hyuga clan, or rather, the foundational training system knowledge of the Hyuga was now in his mind. The Hyuga clan's chakra cultivation method focused on chakra flow and precise control. Those with great strength could freely manipulate chakra to release it from every acupuncture point on their body. Thinking about this knowledge, Sarutobi Ryo looked forward to further cultivation and growth. Soon, Sarutobi Ryo left the scene. The scene was completely silent, with only the branch family girl staring blankly at the ceiling, fresh tear stains adding another layer. At dawn, Hyuga Natsu, having tidied everything up, hurriedly left. Sarutobi Ryo continued his cultivation without any psychological burden. Once something happened, no matter what, outsiders would not suspect him. They would only think it was Hyuga Natsu's own problem. Several days later, Sarutobi Ryo had achieved some success in his cultivation. Finally, there was news from Kirigakure. It turned out that Aburame Shibi had been discovered by the enemy, and while escaping, he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. By the time Hotake Tsukumo arrived, Aburame Shibi only had one breath left. The information received from Aburame Shibi's hand showed that the 3rd Mizukage, in order to persuade the daimyo and dignitaries of the Land of Water to provide wartime supplies, had shifted internal conflicts onto the Yuki clan. The Yuki clan became a sacrifice, and after being exterminated, the internal conflicts were temporarily cleared. Kirigakure would then logically launch a large-scale invasion of other countries. Having received the news, Hotake Tsukumo immediately returned to Konoha and informed the Konoha upper echelons of the information. The reason why Kirigakure had not taken large-scale action for a long time was also explained by Hotake Tsukumo's bringing back the news. Hotake Tsukumo's timely acquisition of information also gave Konoha the opportunity to prepare for Kirigakure's attack. According to the analysis of Konoha's higher-ups, the ruins of Uzushigakure will become Kirigakure's forward base for reinvading Konoha. Therefore, the battle for the Uzushigakure ruins would be the key to Konoha's defense against Kirigakure's attack. Thus, a large number of ninjas were dispatched to the Uzushigakure ruins to set up a base there. Initially, Konoha was reluctant to send troops due to many concerns, such as the problem of resource consumption. Furthermore, Kirigakure's small-scale harassment made Konoha lose its vigilance, creating a boy who cried wolf situation. Ultimately, Hotake Sakumo confirmed the enemy's movements and prevented the crisis before it happened. This also relieved the third Hokage, Sarutobi Ryo, and he praised Hotake Sakumo's achievements in front of everyone. At the Jonin meeting, Namikaze Minato looked at Hotake Sakumo being praised and felt a little uncomfortable. Because according to the development of the original future, the arrogant Konoha would indeed ignore Kirigakure's harassment in the early stages, eventually leading to chaos and heavy losses when Kirigakure attacked. Hotake Sakumo's survival allowed things to develop in a good direction. This was not a problem in itself, but the problem was Hotake Sakumo had made a great contribution this time, timely discerning Kirigakure's action plan. In terms of strategic significance and winning the war, Hotake Sakumo was a great contributor. In addition, Aburame Shibi, who should have died, survived because of Hotake Sakumo's rescue. Because of his near-death injuries, he entrusted the position of clan leader to his younger brother, Aburame Shibi. Another important piece of information was also discerned. The Kirigakure ninja who seriously injured Aburame Shibi was a young girl named Terumi Mei, about the same age as Kakashi. This was quite astonishing. Everyone was skeptical of this news, but everyone knew that the ninja world never lacked geniuses. Being able to defeat the long-established legendary bug user Aburame Shibi at this age was enough to show the genius of that Kirigakure girl ninja named Terumi Mei. And only Namikaze Minato and Sarutobi Ryo knew. Terumi Mei would become a Mizukage in the original future, and her talent and potential should not be underestimated. Then, let the Hyuga clan be the reconnaissance team. Sarutobi Ryo arranged the specific tasks. Kirigakure ninjas all used Kirigakure's hiding and mist technique, which could obscure vision. Even Sharingan could not penetrate the dense fog composed of chakra. Only the Hyuga clan's Byakugan, because of its ability to see through things, could see through everything. It was more than appropriate for them to take the lead. Time flew by, as a large number of Konoha ninjas were dispatched to the Uzushigakure ruins. The Third Shinobi World War began in full swing. Kirigakure joined the war, and Hozuki Mangetsu appeared in the ranks of the 7 ninja swordsmen of Mist. The 7 ninja swordsmen, led by Hozuki Yagura, constantly launched attacks on the Uzushigakure ruins. The two sides launched a fierce tug-of-war on this island ruin, and a large number of ninjas died every day. Kirigakure seemed to regard human lives as worthless, constantly and frantically launching attacks on the Uzushigakure ruins. In the eyes of Konoha's higher-ups, various action plans that seemed impossible were actually leveled by Kirigakure, using human lives to trade for human lives. This could not help but make Konoha's higher-ups begin to suspect whether the third Mizukage was deliberately letting his subordinates die. Sarutobi Ryo and Namikaze Minato affirmed this idea in their hearts, because the third Mizukage of Kirigakure had the shadow of Uchiha Madara manipulating him from behind. Uchiha Madara didn't care about the lives of Kirigakure ninjas. He just wanted to make Konoha bleed more. The war situation continued to advance. Corpses were carried off the battlefield every day. In order to fill the personnel gap, Konoha began to promote a large number of children to Chunin. As Uchiha Bito, Noera Rin, Marino Ibiki, Mitarashi Anko, and other children successively became Chunin and were sent to the battlefield. Kakashi also successfully advanced to Jonin. He was beaming with pride, but before he could be happy, he was hit by Sarutobi Ryo. Because this kind of wartime promotion, if it wasn't because of real ability, there was only one possibility. Konoha didn't have enough people. With Kakashi's age, it was obviously unreasonable to be promoted to Jonin at such a young age. Konoha's surface prosperity could not hide the many internal problems. The real thunder would explode sooner or later. Just as smiles would not really disappear, but would only be transferred. The thunder that Konoha exploded this time became an important proof that the building was about to collapse. That was, Konoha's troop resources were actually not enough. When this fact was placed before Konoha's higher-ups, Sarutobi Hiruzen was worried about this. Udatain Koharu and Mikoto Hamura continued to play music and dance, using singing and dancing to cover up the real problem. As for Shimura Danzo, no one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 62. National Extinction Crisis, the beginning of the new year. It should have been a day for family joy. But Konoha was shrouded in a cloud of sorrow. Because when dominoes fall, they cause a chain reaction. Following Kirigakure's great destruction of the Uzushigakure ruins, reoccupying them, and using the Uzushigakure ruins as a forward base to launch an invasion of the Land of Fire's interior. Konoha's other fronts also faced different pressures. The AB brothers tried many times but failed to break through Konoha's front. This included Namikaze Minato's repeated efforts to hold back Killer Bee. It also included Uchiha Fugaku's achievements in holding back the fourth Reikage. But as the third Reikage joined the battle, the situation instantly reversed. Konoha's front against Kumogakure quickly collapsed, and history once again hurtled in another direction. At the same time, Iwagakure's large forces regrouped on the border. This time, they learned from the previous lessons and conducted reconnaissance more cautiously. The dark, oppressive army brought great psychological pressure to Konoha. To this end, Konoha's higher-ups had to send as many troops as possible to the front. The only thing worth being gratified about was the front against Sunagakure. Here, victories were constantly being reported. The dozen or so elders of Sunagakure, the Turdsters, finally showed their usefulness. In this war of being the worst, Konoha among the two sides always laughed last. However, this situation reversed with the return of the third Kazekage. The suddenly appearing third Kazekage announced the news of regaining control of Sunagakure's regime. A dozen or so Sunagakure elders were purged, some died, and some were arrested. The third Kazekage swept away all the internal parasites of Sunagakure with thunderous momentum. This could not help but make people think that the third Kazekage's previous disappearance was intentional. The purpose was to make the dozen or so Sunagakure elders reveal their ugly faces and extend their claws. The higher-ups of various countries could only think about this kind of result that was almost entrapment because no one could confirm the truth of the matter. After reintegrating the internal affairs of Sunagakure, the third Kazekage designated Ebizo as the next Kazekage. Gaara's father, Raza's past compromises with the elders in order to take office as Kazekage became a joke at this moment. Sunagakure, with 2 generations of Kazekage in the same hall, greatly boosted morale. The counterattack horn sounded. The third Kazekage sat in Sunagakure, constantly monitoring and clearing any obstacles that emerged, while Ebizo focused on fighting in various battlefields, encouraging the morale of all Sunagakure ninjas. Because of the return of the third Kazekage, Ebizo's appointment as the new Kazekage was widely expected. The morale of the greatly boosted Sunagakure sounded the horn of counterattack. 108. Section 108. They advanced relentlessly, directly breaching Konoha's defenses and penetrating deep into Fire Country's key locations. Mount Katsuragi, Konoha, besieged on all sides, was on the verge of collapse. An unprecedented shadow loomed over Konoha. Swish! Heavy rain poured from the sky. It was after the new year, yet snowflakes weren't falling. Inside the Hyuga clan's estate, Hayashi Hyuga's expression was grim. The battle reports constantly arriving from the front lines stirred everyone's hearts. Their fates were intertwined. They either prospered or suffered together. If Konoha were to fail, the consequences would be unimaginable. Hayashi-sama, something terrible has happened. Just then, a member of the branch family rushed in. His face was panicked, almost on the verge of tears. What is it? Hayashi Hyuga immediately stood up and asked. The main family. That esteemed member of the main family has died in battle. What? Hayashi Hyuga's eyes widened suddenly. The branch family members sent to the mist front lines had almost all perished and even that relative from the main family hadn't survived. What about the Byakugan? Hayashi Hyuga immediately asked. His biggest concern at this moment was the Byakugan falling into enemy hands. The branch family member's trembling reply struck Hayashi Hyuga's chest like a heavy hammer. It is said that the mist has obtained one of the esteemed members' Byakugan. Hayashi Hyuga suddenly felt a wave of dizziness. The Hyuga clan's destiny to protect the Byakugan had suffered a setback in this generation. In the end, one Byakugan was lost. Swish! The rain continued to fall. Hayashi Hyuga couldn't hear anything anymore. His mind was filled with countless thoughts. The fury of Konoha's higher-ups, the Hyuga clan's own sense of crisis. The Jonin meeting was convened once again. Hayashi Hyuga, his face pale, sat in his place. Konoha's higher-ups were furious, reprimanding the Hyuga clan for their incompetence. However, everyone knew that the Hyuga clan had already done their duty. So were the enemies too strong? Or were Konoha's higher-ups too? Dismissing any unwelcome thoughts, everyone continued to listen to the upper echelon's pronouncements with somber expressions. Konoha's ninjas were gradually dwindling, and large numbers of children were being sent to the battlefield. The flames of war raged within Fire Country, and countless ordinary people were displaced. Now, the Hyuga clan had also lost a Byakugan. History had been altered. Inoki focused his attention on Konoha and Suna, and it was clear that Wind Country was a barren wasteland, useless even if occupied. So Inoki's target was naturally the closest, Konoha. As for Suna, after purging the parasites and uncovering vast amounts of money and resources, Suna's reserves directly jumped to a new level. The money and resources were invested where they were needed. The third Kazekage, Chiyo, Ebizo, were established Kage-level experts. Yakura and Raza, with the tempering of war, had improved their strength and also entered the Kage level. So, Suna currently possessed 5 Kage-level experts. While flourishing, the new generation had unlimited potential. And Konoha, hailed as the strongest, had now fallen to such a state. After the meeting, Hayashi Hyuga and the main family elders held secret talks all night. They ultimately concluded that Fire Country was facing a national crisis. Konoha naturally couldn't remain aloof. The final outcome might not be different from the fate of the Uzumaki clan. Our Hyuga clan's destiny is to protect the Byakugan. In the dark night, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled outside. Hayashi Hyuga looked up, gazing at the elder's solemn face. Hayashi, we must make a choice. Elder, do you mean? Hayashi Hyuga vaguely guessed what he was getting at. And when a main family elder spoke the decision, Hayashi's eyes widened suddenly. Sure enough, they were going to take this step, leaving Konoha. Chapter 63. Traitorous Hyuga Natsu. It was a gloomy, rainy afternoon. The wind howled inwards, and the window kept banging. Sarutobi Ryo sat calmly in the living room, practicing his chakra control techniques. In front of him on the table was a cup of water. Inside the cup, ice flowers visibly formed one after another. This was a new technique that Sarutobi Ryo had developed in recent days, or rather, an improvement in his chakra control. Ordinary ninjas could only release chakra from their palms or soles of their feet. Sarutobi Ryo had begun to try radiating chakra outwards from various acupoints on his body. This was a slow and steady process, not to be rushed. Ryo-sama, that's roughly the situation. Across the low table, a branch family maid sat kneeling, her expression gloomy. Since the last incident, she had been forced to become Sarutobi Ryo's spy, passing on information from the main family to Sarutobi Ryo. Apart from the cage bird seal on her forehead, another brand had appeared on her abdomen. This made her realize that her life was also in the hands of the man before her. The activation of the cursed seal would inflict great torment on the afflicted. And when the afflicted died, they usually wouldn't leave any trace of the cursed seal. That is, there would be no proof of death. For her own life, Hyuga Natsu could only listen to the arrangements of the man before her. After all, only by living could she have everything. Sarutobi Ryo was even clearer about the reason why Hyuga Natsu had quickly become compliant. When she got used to being a slave, she would naturally get used to being controlled by others. Compared to the brooding Hyuga Hizashi and Hyuga Ruri, who had a rebellious spirit, Hyuga Natsu was the type of slave who was willing to let things be. The branding of the curse seal made Hyuga Natsu subconsciously accept Sarutobi Ryo's position as a superior. Her current servility was clearly filled with the meaning of a slave. Of course, Sarutobi Ryo hadn't tortured Hyuga Natsu. He had only asked her to pass on information. The Hyuga clan's recent movements could be said to be very worrying. A large number of branch family members had died in battle, and they had also lost one of the main family's Byakugan. This was a major blow to the Hyuga clan. And considering the changing situation in the ninja world, Konoha was in imminent danger. The Hyuga clan had developed the idea of protecting their destiny. No, rather, they had always been like this. The Hyuga clans joining Konoha was only in accordance with history and the general trend. In reality, they were still primarily focused on protecting the Byakugan. Understood. Sarutobi Ryo nodded, indicating that he had received the information. Interesting, the Hyuga clan was actually going to run away. Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. For them, the Byakugan was above everything else. 109. Section 109, according to what Hinata Natsu said. In order not to arouse suspicion from others, the Hinata clan would only secretly transfer a portion of the clan members. After success, the others would gradually retreat. A pair of men and women cannot be an absolute guarantee. Therefore, Hinata Hizashi and Hinata Ruri were also in the ranks of those leaving. Apart from the clan elders, these four had the highest Byakugan purity. They could carry on the family line and continue the descendants. The location of the escape was unknown. It was only decided to head towards the Land of Iron. The Land of Iron is a neutral country ruled by samurai. Most of the area there is covered in snow, making it easy to defend and difficult to attack. And whether choosing to hide or the idea of defecting after the Land of Fire perishes were both very reasonable strategies. The time of the escape would be tomorrow night. I'll leave the surveillance to you today and tomorrow. Sarutobi Ryo looked behind him, asking Yamanaka Hui, whom he trusted most, to monitor the Hinata. Yamanaka Hui nodded vigorously. Don't worry, young master. I will keep an eye on Ruri's movements. She left excitedly, already eager to rescue Ruri. The Hinata clan. This was completely courting death. Without even forcing them, they were seeking death themselves, truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Then, next, Sarutobi Ryo looked at the branch family made in front of him. She slowly lowered her head, her fingers nervously clutching her skirt. In order to thank you for your work and the information you provided, next, Sarutobi Ryo got up and walked to Hinata Natsu. Clatter. Body contact. Hinata Natsu looked up, then saw Sarutobi Ryo's summoning weapon of the Sarutobi clan. The moment she saw it, Hinata Natsu's eyes widened, and she froze on the spot. She would never forget young Master Ryo's summoning weapon and his powerful strength. Recalling the past, Hinata Natsu's body couldn't help but tremble. Sarutobi Ryo patted Hinata Natsu's cheek with the weapon. The hint was already very clear. You know very well what to do, right? Hinata Natsu opened her mouth and nodded. Then, she began to move tremblingly. The taijutsu sparring began. Outside, the wind and rain were shaking. Sarutobi Ryo stood on the spot, his taijutsu moves wide open. At a certain moment, the rain in the sky poured down as if gushing onto the earth. Plop, accompanied by the sound of a human body falling to the ground. Sarutobi Ryo pressed his advantage. Sizzle. Hinata Natsu! Exclamation point. The rain is really heavy. At the same time, in another room of the manor, a special machine was installed here. Something that looked like a helmet was worn on Yamanaka Huey's head. This machine was manufactured in imitation of the Intelligence Department's machine. It could expand the sensory range of sensory ninjas. Yamanaka, Huey's perception, could therefore cover the entire Konoha. To prevent anyone from disturbing her, Kurenai stood aside, protecting Yamanaka, Huey's safety. Yamanaka, Huey's perception quickly locked onto the Hinata clan's mansion. Everyone's chakra flames were clearly perceived. Speaking of which, Kurenai, you've been developing more and more recently. Yamanaka, Hui, suddenly brought up something. Kurenai blinked her eyes, her expression slightly stagnant. She also noticed that her figure had been growing rapidly recently. How should I put it? With curves in all the right places, she was becoming more and more womanly. Kurenai certainly knew the reason. She thought to herself, after only a few times of being taken care of by the Lord, I've become like this. What if the frequency was higher? Kurenai, what are you thinking about? Maybe the food in Konoha is better. Kurenai made an excuse. With the invasion of Kirigakure, the port town was impacted. A portion of the industry was stagnant. Fortunately, the company headquarters had already moved to the land of waves, so it was not affected. Yeah, Yamanaka Hui nodded. Seeing that she didn't continue to ask, Kurenai breathed a sigh of relief. What is the Lord doing now? Kurenai muttered, and the handsome face and figure of Sarutobi Ryo couldn't help but appear in her mind. Chapter 64. Chasing Hinata Hizashi 2 days later, at night. The Hinata clan was ready to go. That night, it was pouring rain. The Hinata clan's residence was located in a corner on the edge of Konoha. According to the designed escape route, Hinata Hizashi chose to start from the clan gathering place and directly cross the city wall. Around Konoha, there was a huge sensory barrier covering it, which was said to have been personally designed by Uzumaki Mito back then. Therefore, doing so would inevitably trigger an alarm from the sensory barrier. But all of this changed with Ruri's joining of the Umbu. Under the coercion and lure of the clan elders, Hinata Ruri could only be forced to say the password of the barrier. Once you know the barrier password, you can quietly sneak into or leave Konoha, like Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame in the original work. In the middle of the night, Hinata Hizashi, who was ready, followed the clan elders, taking his younger brother Hizashi, his fiancée Hinata Hazuki, and his younger brother's fiancée Hinata Ruri, and left the mansion together. The 5 figures hurried along, crossing the city wall all the way. After using the password technique to open the barrier, the 5 crossed the barrier. Coming to the outside world, Hinata Hizashi looked back. The hometown where he had lived for many years, growing up here since childhood, was about to be left behind. His mood had to be said to be very complicated. Let's go. Taking one last look back, Hinata Hizashi resolutely stepped into the rainy night. The 5 walked silently, not daring to stop for a moment. They walked like this for most of the night. As dawn was about to arrive, not only did the rain not stop, but it was getting heavier and heavier. Let's rest for a while. Seeing the tired expressions of the crowd, the clan elders signaled to find a place to rest first. The town in front was clearly discernible. The houses inside were all emptied out. The start of the war caused people to flee. Randomly choosing a house, the 5 entered and began to rest. Because they had left Konoha and were afraid of attracting the attention of others, Hinata Hizashi did not make a fire. Soon, Hinata Hazuki, who had casually eaten some dry food, fell into a dream. Hinata Hizashi looked at his fiancée, then turned to look at his younger brother. He wanted to let his younger brother be the guard, but after thinking about it, he turned his gaze to Ruri. Ruri, you go to the door to watch. The cold tone carried the dignity of a superior. Even in exile, there was still a distinction between the main family and the branch family. Hizashi was silent and did not speak. He quietly watched Ruri get up and go outside. Then, Hizashi bowed slightly and went to the living room. 110. Section 110. Ruri stood at the door, gazing at the swaying rain outside, a surge of sorrow welling up in her inorganic eyes. Hizashi stood in the living room behind her, silently watching his childhood friend. He had barely spoken a word on the way, nor had he shown any concern for Ruri. Such silence naturally had its purpose. Hizashi knew that Ryo Shasama had already taken action. For the sake of his childhood sweetheart's happiness, he was willing to drift further and further away from Ruri, even pushing the one he loved into the arms of another man. What is true love, really? Could this be considered true love? Hyuga Hizashi didn't know. He only hoped that Ruri could find happiness, true happiness. Slowly, as Hizashi pondered these things, he drifted into sleep. He didn't know how much time had passed. A clap of thunder boomed. Hizashi woke up abruptly. He subconsciously activated his Byakugan and began to scan his surroundings. Before he could say anything, his brother stormed out, his face flushed with anger. That bitch. Hizashi had only seen that kind of rage on his brother's face when he was punishing members of the branch family. But he saw Ruri standing at the door, still expressionless, but with a hint of anticipation in her eyes. Hizashi suddenly understood. Ryo Shasama has come. The house was in chaos. Hyuga Hayashi, the clan elder, and Hyuga Ugetsu were all terrified, because in their Byakugan vision, ninjas were approaching from different directions. Southeast, northwest, pursuers were coming from every part of the town. People from the Umbu, Sarutobi, Ryo, Yamanaka-ke, familiar and unfamiliar faces appeared in the rain before dawn. The sky was beginning to lighten. In less than an hour, it would be dawn. And Hyuga Hayashi and the others had been on the run for an entire night. So, the village knew our whereabouts all along and sent Sarutobi Ryo and the Umbu to track us down. Hyuga Hayashi suddenly realized. So what should they do next? We can only fight to the death. The clan elder suddenly emanated an aura. The feeling of old age instantly vanished. Defecting from a village was a capital crime. Hyuga Hayashi nodded. How could he not know this? That's all we can do, swish. Swish. Several figures leaped through the rain. Soon, they had surrounded the mansion. Before long, Sarutobi Ryo appeared from the crowd and entered the courtyard. Hyuga Hayashi, can you give a reasonable explanation for leaving the village with your clan members without any reason? Sarutobi Ryo looked at Hyuga Hayashi, not paying any attention to Ruri's situation. Because at this time, the more he ignored Hyuga Ruri, the more he could protect her. This is the explanation. The young and vigorous Hyuga Hayashi knew that the only way for them to escape was to fight their way out. Faced with being surrounded, he adopted the gentle fist stance and directly launched a palm strike at Sarutobi Ryo from a distance. 8 trigrams vacuum palm. The vibration of the air triggered a shockwave. In the Hyuga clan's gentle fist system, the 8 trigrams vacuum palm was the fastest. In the original story, Niji's palm strike was so fast that even Kisame had difficulty reacting. And Hyuga Hayashi had been immersed in gentle fist for many years, so the power of his 8 trigrams vacuum palm was naturally extremely terrifying. He struck Sarutobi Ryo's chest with one palm, hitting his heart with a bang. Most people would suffer a ruptured heart and die from this palm. However, Sarutobi Ryo only moved his body slightly and remained standing there. Sensing something was wrong, Hyuga Hayashi immediately activated his Byakugan. Soon, he discovered the abnormality. He saw that Sarutobi Ryo was wearing a layer of metal armor under his black lining. It was meant to be used in this mission. In the original story, Jiraiya and others also wore armor to protect against the enemy's hidden arrows. Sarutobi Ryo raised his hand and slowly brushed off the dust from his chest, then continued to look at Hyuga Hayashi. Don't anyone move, his low voice carried a certain momentum. Sarutobi Ryo, who had long been displeased with the Hyuga clan, stomped on the ground and directly punched Hyuga Hayashi. Gentle fist versus hard fist. Who will be the better? Everyone watched this scene with bated breath, anticipating the battle that would follow space-splitting katana sword control technique. The Umbu surrounded them, and the rain continued to fall. If it were other enemies, Sarutobi Ryo would have been in the mood to fight slowly, constantly honing his abilities. But at this moment, Sarutobi Ryo only wanted to solve the problem immediately and save Ruri from the fire. Thus, Sarutobi Ryo's figure suddenly blurred for a moment, and he used a swift release to point his finger at Hyuga Hayashi's brow. A power like a Tyrannosaurus Rex swept over him. Before he even got close, Hyuga Hayashi felt a stinging pain on his brow. He had thought Sarutobi Ryo was strong, but he still hadn't expected him to be this strong. But it was too late to think about anything now. He could barely catch the opponent's speed with his Byakugan. So, Hyuga Hayashi desperately raised his arms and struck out. At this critical moment, Sarutobi Ryo didn't expect the opponent to give up defense and attack with all his might. He thought he would use rotation, but now he wanted to trade injuries. Thinking quickly in his mind, Sarutobi Ryo quickly decided on the next strategy. Before Hyuga Hayashi's palms could hit his throat and face, Sarutobi Ryo's fingertip had already released chakra. Hyuga Hayashi only felt a cold wind blowing, his body turning cold, and the muscles all over his body becoming stiff. The ice release chakra released through the fingertip was launched from a distance. This was something Hyuga Hayashi had not expected at all. After turning Hyuganatsu into a firewall weapon, Sarutobi Ryo's chakra control skills began to advance by leaps and bounds. After absorbing the essence of the Hyuga clan's taijutsu, Sarutobi Ryo was already able to release gentle fist-like moves through his fingertips. It was difficult for other ninjas to do this except for the ninjas of the Hyuga clan. This was also the place where Hyuga Hayashi was negligent. It was this negligence that led to his defeat. With a thud, Hyuga Hayashi fell into the rain. The cold current coming from all over his body caused his body temperature to drop rapidly. Soon, his body began to turn blue and purple, and bursts of cold air kept coming out, like a corpse buried in a glacier. Whoosh, the rain continued to fall. Sarutobi Ryo slowly retracted his finger, instantly killing Hyuga Hayashi. Everyone around was extremely shocked. By controlling a part of the Hyuga clan's chakra control skills, Sarutobi Ryo successfully raised his strength to the Kage level. The moves he used between his gestures were no longer something that ordinary jonin could master. With just a finger from a distance, he injected a large amount of ice-release chakra into Hyuga Hayashi's body. Hizashi, aren't you going to do it yet? Just then, the clan elder roared from the side. Hyuga Hizashi raised his head, shifted his gaze, and then charged towards Sarutobi Ryo in a gentle fist stance. He and Sarutobi Ryo met eyes, understanding each other's intentions. At the same time, Hyuga Ugetsu's scream rang out. She tried to run towards her fiancé, but Yamanaka Kei quickly controlled her with mental secret techniques, holding her in place. 111. Section 111 then, Sarutobi Ryo and Hyuga Hizashi brushed past each other. The latter swayed slightly, his lips moving. He seemed to be saying, "Ruri, I'm entrusting her to you, young Master Ryo." Thump! Hyuga Hizashi collapsed into a puddle, unconscious. Waste. The head elder of the main house cursed inwardly. Little did he know that Hyuga Hizashi had no fighting spirit and was 100% determined to throw the fight. Soon, the head elder of the main house, with a grimacing face, began his desperate struggle. Because he knew very well that if he didn't break through today, the fate of those few people would be exceptionally miserable. "Ah!" he roared, sending out gentle fist strikes from a distance. Boom! The advanced form of 8 trigrams palm, 8 trigrams mountain crusher, allowed his chakra to mix with compressed air, creating something resembling a laser cannon. After one strike, everything was destroyed, whether it was the wall or the trees outside. It plowed a terrifying path straight to the outside world. After delivering this palm strike, the head elder of the main house didn't show any joy on his face, but immediately turned around. Without him knowing, Sarutobi Ryo had silently appeared behind him. Relying on swift release movement, Sarutobi Ryo didn't cause the slightest ripple. Gentle fist. The head elder of the main house roared, the chakra in his palm glowing with a substantial blue light. Rock smash. As soon as Sarutobi Ryo attacked, an earth-shattering force howled through the air. The fist, exploding like thunder, slammed heavily into the old palm. Boom! Strong fist vs. gentle fist. Using magnetic field rotation, combined with swift release and taijutsu, Sarutobi Ryo's fist directly exceeded the speed of sound, causing a terrifying sonic boom. After one punch, the head elder of the main house flew backward, crashing through houses, breaking through walls, and finally flying outside. Sarutobi Ryo took a step, using swift release, instantaneous body technique, almost instantly catching up. Rotation. The head elder of the main house, getting up from the ground, immediately used rotation. After rotation ended, Sarutobi Ryo fell from the sky with a thump. Sarutobi Ryo, who looked bloody all over, didn't have the slightest dimness in his eyes. On the contrary, they became even brighter. Chirp! A streak of blue light suddenly flew out from Sarutobi Ryo's back. With a buzzing sound, it instantly cut the head elder of the main house in half. Kusanagi sword. Empty blade. After the assassination, Sarutobi Ryo murmured the name of this move. After the chakra control was improved, the new ability of the Kusanagi sword was also unlocked. Just like in the original story, when Orochimaru controlled the Kusanagi sword to stab Sarutobi Hiruzen. Sarutobi Ryo also learned the same move from this Kusanagi sword. It looked like he was using sword control technique. The Kusanagi sword flew out, turned around, and quickly returned to Sarutobi Ryo's back, entering the scabbard. A look of astonishment appeared on the face of the head elder of the main house, and until his death, he couldn't believe that he would be killed so easily. Splash. The rain was still falling. Hyuga Hizashi and Hyuga Hayashi were lying in the puddle. Hyuga Heium was crying. Hyuga Ruri's eyes were slowly lighting up. Not long after, Sarutobi Ryo simply bandaged the wound and asked his subordinates to collect the remains of the head elder of the main house. Hyuga Hayashi and Hyuga Hizashi were arrested. Hyuga Ruri was placed in a carriage. She, who had not slept for several days, slowly closed her eyes at this time and snuggled up to Sarutobi Ryo. Her outstretched arms tightly wrapped around Sarutobi Ryo, as if afraid of losing him. Sarutobi Ryo looked ahead, driving the carriage slowly back towards Konoha. The road was bumpy but peaceful. Kaga-level powerhouse. That night, everyone returned to Konoha. Hyuga Hayashi's defection from the village will be punishable by death. This is a definite crime. Hyuga Hizashi, on the other hand, was coerced and not voluntary, so he will only be symbolically imprisoned for a short time. And the treatment of Hyuga Heium and Hyuga Ruri, who are tools for passing on the family line, is even clearer. Hyuga Heium was placed under house arrest. Hyuga Ruri was directly transferred to Sarutobi Ryo's command. For most of the Hyuga clan members, things happened too fast for them to react. At a time when Konoha was in danger, a family rebellion was no small matter. So, after careful discussion by the high-level officials of Konoha, it was decided to secretly solve this difficult problem. Just like in the original story, the high-level officials of Konoha secretly solved the Uchiha problem. The death of the head elder of the main house does not need to be explained to the outside world. After all, the head elder of the main house has been living in seclusion for many years, and even if he suddenly dies, no outside ninja will care. Within the Hyuga clan, it is claimed that the elder suddenly died of a sudden illness. As for Hyuga Hayashi, the high-level officials of Konoha are preparing to announce to the outside world that Hyuga Hayashi was seriously injured while performing a mission and is currently recuperating. A defection turmoil was quickly suppressed and subsided. However, the changes in the Hyuga clan that followed were the real beginning. Sarutobi Ryo, who do you think should be the leader of the Hyuga clan? In the Hokage conference room, the four high-level officials of Konoha stared at Sarutobi Ryo sitting opposite them and asked this question. At this time, it was already late at night. The disposal of the Hyuga clan has been discussed for most of the time. The remaining question is who will succeed the Hyuga clan leader. The Hyuga clan cannot be without a leader for a day. Hyuga Hayashi was seriously injured and imprisoned. At present, the Hyuga clan needs someone to preside over the overall situation. Outsiders are obviously impossible, so they still have to choose from within the Hyuga clan. At present, the Hyuga clan's main family members currently have Hyuga Hayashi, Hyuga Heium, Hyuga Kei, and his mother. Hyuga Kei, Sarutobi Ryo had already investigated his information. The Byakugan that was lost this time, and the Hyuga main family ninja who died in battle, was Hokage father. Many people may not be familiar with Hokage. In fact, this extra has some background. In the original story, when Pain attacked, he released a super large Shinra Tensei, pressing everyone underneath. The Hyuga extra who climbed out of the ruins and shouted Miss Hinata was Hokage. The official Book of Array clearly states that Hokage is also a member of the main family. In this era, Hokage is just a child, just learning gentle fist and literacy. If he is to be established as a puppet clan leader, it is obviously not very suitable because he is too young. Hokage's mother also has no talent, but is only prominent because of her status as a member of the main family. Knowing the death of Hokage's father, she is depressed all day long, and it seems that her days are numbered. I think Hyuga Hisashi is the most suitable. Sarutobi Ryo said his opinion. Hyuga Hisashi is very talented and has always been frustrated. If he could replace his brother and become the leader of the Hyuga clan, he would definitely feel much better, and Hyuga Hisashi would not betray Konoha. The premise is to control Hyuga Hayashi, because the means to launch the cage bird are currently only in the hands of Hyuga Hayashi. Hisashi, several high-level officials were a little suspicious. Hyuga Hisashi is a member of the branch family. Everyone Hisashi's skills are comparable to Hayashi's, in my opinion. Replacing Hayashi is no problem. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at his colleagues, very approving of his eldest son's opinion. It can only be this way. Nezumi Koharu and the others nodded. 112. Section 112. Hinata Ruri is a patient with severe depression. Although her skills aren't weak, she's not capable of handling great responsibilities. Hinata Hisashi is still young and can't be utilized. So, looking at the current situation, only Hisashi is truly suitable. And Hinata Hayashi's downfall also indicates one thing. In the future, should we continue to use the cage bird seal to control the Hinata clan? That kind of thing is too far off, Kohara-sama. Our Leaf Village's top priority is to mobilize all our strength to jointly resist the enemies of the 4 great ninja villages. Sarutobi Ryo directly shifted the conflict. To decide whether to continue following the old Hinata path in the future, we must at least wait until the crisis of the Great Ninja War has passed. That makes sense. Yuditane Kohara nodded, looking at Sarutobi Ryo with appreciation. His performance in battle and missions has made her feel that. Perhaps Sarutobi Ryo is more outstanding than Namake's Minato. From a personal standpoint, she is a close friend of Sarutobi Bawako. Between her and Sarutobi Ryo, there's a relationship of elder and junior. It's only natural to promote a young person. Sarutobi Ryo. I've already heard about the specific details of the battle from the Umbu members. Yuditane Koharu couldn't help but feel a desire to nurture his talent. Perform well. I look forward to you making contributions on the battlefield. Yuditane Koharu rarely curved her lips into a slight smile. Then she got up and left. Mikoto Hamura, who was beside her, frowned slightly, feeling that something was not right. If Sarutobi Ryo continues to grow and becomes even more outstanding than Minato, then what follows? We really need to consider the possibility of switching to cultivating Sarutobi Ryo. Hiruzen, congratulations. Danzo, who had been silent all along, congratulated his old friend. Your son has become a Kaga-level powerhouse at such a young age. It is indeed worth celebrating. Then, Danzo looked at Sarutobi Ryo. Sarutobi Ryo, with your talent, it's too much of a waste to only serve as the leader of Umbu Squad 6. Strive for the position of Jonin Squad leader. In Danzo's view, it is most appropriate for Sarutobi Ryo to take the vacant Jonin Squad leader position. As for Namake's Minato, he is still too naive. His vision and thinking are not as good as Sarutobi Ryo. Understood. Sarutobi Ryo nodded. He calmly watched the others leave. What they say is not important. What's important is what they actually do. If these 3 really change their bets because of his performance, then that's naturally no problem. But if it's just empty promises, therefore, No matter what they say, he only needs to look at the actual development. Sarutobi Ryo, you already have the strength of a Kage, right? Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at his eldest son, his eyes filled with increasing satisfaction. If this momentum continues, Sarutobi Ryo is estimated to be the best candidate for the 5th Hokage. Just one more achievement. Sarutobi Bawako reminded her son. If the eldest son can make a great contribution, then he will have the opportunity to learn the S-class techniques in the Book of Seals. At that time, his father, Sarutobi Hiruzen, will be able to convince everyone, just like he allowed Namake's Minato to view and learn the S-class Flying Thunder God technique back then. Let the eldest son also learn one of the forbidden techniques. Chapter 67. Hizashi, after offering the childhood sweetheart, offer the sister-in-law. Young Master Ryo, please. It was already late at night when Sarutobi Ryo returned to the mansion. The courtyard was pitch black, with only the light in the hall still on. When Sarutobi Ryo walked in, he found that the members of Umbu Squad 6 were all there. Yamanaka Kei, Hinata Ruri, the Yumino couple, and Girin. Umbu Squad 6 has a formal establishment of 6 people. Noera Rin has just been nominally added. During this time, Noera Rin became a Chunin, and Sarutobi Ryo hasn't had time to congratulate her. Noera Rin's nominal addition means that the establishment will become 7 people, and an Umbu squad has a minimum establishment of 8 people, who will join the remaining name list in the future. Sarutobi Ryo glanced at the scene. Everyone. The decision to handle the Hinata clan was announced from Sarutobi Ryo's mouth. From today onwards, Ruri is free. The death of the main family elders. Hinata Hayashi was seriously injured, imprisoned, and dismissed. Hinata Hizashi took over. All of this indicates that the Hinata clan will usher in earth-shattering changes. Everyone couldn't help but look at Ruri, sincerely happy for her. Ruri slowly raised her head, her eyes trembling slightly. Thousands of words were contained in a single glance. All right, it's getting late. Everyone, hurry back and rest. Sarutobi Ryo smiled slightly, issuing an order to leave. The Yumino couple nodded and left first. Girin personally participated in the pursuit mission of the Hinata clan, once again witnessing the strength of her lord, and was satisfied with this. After Girin left, Yamanaka Kei gently patted Ruri's shoulder. Ruri, congratulations. Live here from now on. This is your home. Yamanaka Kei told Ruri to move over. Don't live in the Hinata clan anymore. The old things are gone, and the new things are coming. A brand new future awaits her. Without waiting for Ruri to reply, Yamanaka Kei got up and left the scene. After she went out and closed the door, there were only 2 people left in the room. The hall was empty, appearing particularly spacious. The bright light shone, giving Ruri a hazy feeling. Ruri, you are safe now. Sarutobi Ryo walked over, gazing at the Byakugan girl who stood up. From now on, she has gained most of her freedom. Ruri stared at Sarutobi Ryo, then threw herself into the latter's arms, smelling the fragrance of the girl's hair and feeling her trembling body. Until this moment, her disguise was finally removed and she began to sob. Hinata Ruri, progress, 30%. Sarutobi Ryo didn't care about the system's prompt. Compared to the cold data, Ruri's safety is the top priority. Hinata Hayashi is still unconscious. Even if he wakes up, he will find that he is controlled and completely unable to move, let alone use the cursed seal. The night was quiet. Sarutobi Ryo slowly raised his hand and hugged the girl in his arms, quietly comforting her. Time began to pass minute by minute. After a long time, Ruri stopped sobbing. She slowly raised her head, her tearful and exquisite face looking at Sarutobi Ryo, as if to completely imprint the other party's face in her eyes. Sarutobi Ryo raised his hand and slowly grabbed the girl's chin. After raising it to a high enough height, Sarutobi Ryo did not hesitate at all and directly leaned down to kiss her. Your destiny will be changed by me. From tonight onwards, you will be mine. At the same time, the Umbu prison. This is another cage different from the one under Uchiha's jurisdiction. Some special prisoners are held here. Hinata Heium was not imprisoned with chains because her strength was too weak. The reason why Hinata and Hanabi's talents are average has a huge connection with her as a mother. On the other hand, Niji, whose talent is extremely strong, is an example. Hayashi, Hinata Heium, who was captured back, looked more and more haggard. She held onto the railing, looking at her fiancé in the prison. The medical ninja had already treated him, but it was uncertain when he would wake up. The ice-released chakra eroded his body. Perhaps he could wake up, or perhaps he would never wake up. Hinata Heium, you can leave here. The Umbu stood behind Hinata Heium, issuing a cold order. 113. Section 113 news just came from the top echelons of Konoha. They will release Hyuga Hazuki and Hyuga Hizashi without charge. As for the mastermind, Hyuga Hayashi, of course, he will remain imprisoned. Soon, Hyuga Hazuki saw Hizashi walking out of another cell. Whether it was the rescue of Ruri or his own meteoric rise, he owed an immense debt of gratitude. Understand? Hyuga Hizashi nodded and took a deep breath. Congratulations, Mr. Hizashi. No, Lord Hizashi. The ANBU member changed his tone, his voice filled with congratulatory intent. Some were happy, and some were sad. When Hyuga Hazuki learned that the Hyuga clan had changed hands, his vision spun. How could this be? Sister-in-law. No, Hazuki, please accept my condolences. Hyuga Hizashi was quick to grab Hyuga Hazuki's arm. The changed tone represented many things. Hyuga Hazuki also realized from this. It was very possible that Hizashi, as the younger brother, was dissatisfied with his elder brother's usual authority. Having always been dissatisfied with the main family, what would he do to him? Don't worry, I won't lay a finger on you. Hyuga Hizashi approached Hyuga Hazuki and said softly. But before Hyuga Hazuki could rejoice, Hyuga Hizashi said coldly, "Someone will want you." That person was naturally young master Sarutobi Ryo. Hyuga Hizashi had been a member of the branch family for many years, so he was very good at observing people's expressions. From Sarutobi Ryo's rescue of Ruri and the beautiful women surrounding him, he could more or less guess something. Of course, guessing is just guessing. The reality might be different, but no matter what, it's always good to be careful. Who knows if young Master Ryo really likes that sort of thing? So just obediently wait. After saying that, Hyuga Hizashi looked at Hyuga Natsu, who was rushing over from outside. Natsu, from today onwards, I am the head of the Hyuga clan. When you return, summon everyone, and I will explain this matter. As he spoke, Hyuga Hizashi looked at the ANBU member beside him. The latter nodded, indicating that he would accompany him to explain the arrangements made by the higher-ups. At that time, everyone would understand the changes in the Hyuga clan. Chapter 68. Konoha's defeat is like a collapsing mountain the next morning. Sarutobi Ryo looked at the Byakugan maiden still sleeping in his arms, feeling satisfied. Infuse the will of fire into Hyuga Ruri. Progress, 90%. Reward, Hyuga power. The system's reward was just a line of prompts. But Sarutobi Ryo knew that he had truly obtained the power of the Hyuga. Whether it was Hyuga Ruri or the child who might be born in the future, Hyuga Niji. No, from now on, he should be called Sarutobi Niji. The strongest mother in the Hyuga clan, plus the strongest offspring. They were all his relatives. Obtaining Ruri was equivalent to obtaining the power of the Hyuga, Byakugan, or even Tensigen. In addition, Hyuga Ruri's strength was obviously tens of thousands of times stronger than Hyuga Natsu. Therefore, from her, he could also obtain most of the Hyuga clan's inheritance. As for the details of some secret techniques passed down orally in the main family, he could obtain them from Hyuga Hayashi, or even Hyuga Hazuki, when the time came. The changes in the Hyuga clan were told to others by Hyuga Hizashi the next day. The entire Konoha knew about the changes in the Hyuga clan. If it were at ordinary times, everyone would pay close attention and use it as idle chatter after meals, even speculating about the conspiracy theories that might be involved. However, Konoha after the new year was simultaneously facing pressure from the 4 major ninja villages, which made everyone unhappy. Faced with a national crisis, everyone could only focus their energy on fighting. Those with discerning eyes had already seen that the Konoha building was about to collapse. Would the foundation of half a century be destroyed in one fell swoop? Sarutobi Hiruzen felt very worried about this. The Third Ninja World War continued to be an opportunity for Konoha to break through the encirclement. Fortunately, the four major ninja villages were also fighting on their own, with no intention of joining forces. This more or less gave Konoha a chance to breathe and a fluke mentality. After another meeting of the Jonin squad ended, everyone left one after another. This time, in addition to Hyuga Hizashi coming forward to replace Hyuga Hayashi and being officially recognized, there was still some uninformative talk. After everyone left, Sarutobi Ryo, Hokage Tsukumo, and Namikaze Minato stayed behind. Tsukumo, Sarutobi Ryo, Namikaze Minato. The reason we asked you three to stay here is because we have some things we want to tell you. Koharu Yudatane's words became slightly gentler. Perhaps it was because Konoha was facing an unprecedented crisis. Even Hokage Tsukumo, who she originally disliked, now seemed precious. After discussions at the higher levels, we believe that we should consider selecting the fourth Hokage to boost morale, and you three are the most hopeful candidates to become Hokage. This not only included the fourth Hokage, it also designated the scope of the fifth Hokage. Tsunade's departure, Jiraiya's lack of interest in the Hokage position, Orochimaru's hidden evil intentions. After excluding these people, Sarutobi Ryo, Hokage Tsukumo, and Namikaze Minato were the best candidates at the moment. Sarutobi Ryo, you don't need to speak first. We know that you highly admire your teacher. Konoha's white fang, Hamura Mikoto, adjusted his glasses, indicating that they understood. But now that the war has become this situation, we can't just designate one person. The implication of Hamura Mikoto's words was that any one of the three could die on the battlefield. Therefore, we must plan in advance and at least have a substitute. Normally, according to the order, Hokage Tsukumo would definitely be the fourth Hokage. Then the younger Sarutobi Ryo and Namikaze Minato would compete for the fifth Hokage. But now it's different than before. Why don't you ask them three what other views they have on the current situation? Dan suddenly spoke. Rather than designating who is the Hokage, he was more concerned with how to win this battlefield. Since they believed that all three were qualified to become Hokage, then as candidates, it would be normal for them to turn the tide, right? Hokage Tsukumo scratched his head, unable to think of a specific strategy. Although he was highly skilled, he did lack judgment on the direction of the war. This was because he had only been involved in politics for a short time, so he was still considered a rookie. Namikaze Minato was also silent. He had obtained the memories of the second cycle, and also obtained the information sent back by his future self. What he currently lacked was only time. That's right, he was racing against time, and he had to have enough time to become stronger. Then, young Master Ryo must also have the same idea. Namikaze Minato looked at Sarutobi Ryo beside him, whose expression was equally calm, because both of them knew that as long as they had enough time, sooner or later, the two of them could become powerful people who could turn the tide. In fact, Sarutobi Ryo did have some ideas. In the current situation, if he wanted to quickly defy the heavens, he would naturally need a heaven-defying technique. For example, impure world resurrection. This was a bottom-line method. Pulling out the dead to fight in place of the living would instantly reverse the situation. To be extreme, gathering the power of the entire Konoha to research impure world resurrection was not impossible. But impure world resurrection was currently banned by the higher-ups, so it could only be a last resort. Leaving aside this forbidden technique, the remaining heaven-defying technique was probably only 8 gates released formation. The Book of Sealing must have recorded this forbidden technique. 114. Section 114, however, that's not the only way to obtain the 8 gates formation. Perhaps I could ask my Dai for help. The three of them were thinking different things. Outside, an Umbu ninja rushed in. Lord Hokage, something bad has happened. The Eastern Defense Line.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.